Hello, good evening, good day, everybody, and welcome back to the Ask Abhijit show. I hope you're all doing great. This is episode 327, and I'm going to take questions from the super chat today, as many as I can, over the next couple of hours or so. Before we do that, let's see who all is there on the live chat. Arun Ramesh, Oscar Bandit, Sharan B3M, Sharan B3M, Bhaskar Bandit. Who else do we have? Aniket. Aniket is there. Who else? DN0HR is here. Manhattan I6W Geopolitical Dubai is always here from Indore. Good to see you always, sir. Good to see you. Thank you so much. Hani Sharma. Hani Sharma is here. Vidhi Manyar, good evening, ma'am. Aniket once again. SKR7733. Madhav Gupta 38. Advait Ashwini Nergui. Manhattan Rekha Humle. Jai Shri Ram, ma'am. Madhav Gupta 38. Shri Sudhir Kumar. Jai Shri Ram. Madhav Gupta. Ansh Divu. Geopolitical Dubai once again. Real Painter. Nirvana Shanks Kodi Chipa-san. Nirvana Shanks son. M. Keshav. Madhav Gupta. Nabanita Das, Namaste. Animish Bharatiya, Ram Ram sir. Ragiraho online. Har Mahadev ji. Om Naik, Namaskar. AJ Raoul, bonsoir, monsieur. Bonsoir, sir. Who else do we have? Feel Strong Man, good to see you, sir. Feel Strong Man, Honey Badger of Kalinga. That's quite a name. Shatabish, good to be back. Good to see you, sir. Good to see you once again. Jaskiran Singh, good morning. Sumit Agarwal, bonjour. Pratham Sharma, Manhattan. Animish Bharatiya, Abhishek Srivastav, Abhishek Shukla live. Ansh Divu, Ashay Kanade, History Go, Anonymous Scientist, bonjour, good to see you. It's good to see you, sir. Vaibhav Thakre, Raghuvir Solanki, Madhav Gupta, Feel Strong Man, Amayatul Pule, Guten Abend from Deutschland. Jyotsna Tomar, Namaste ji. Real Painter, once again, Abhiram, long time, good to see you, Abhiram ji. Manisha Cardoso, Namaste, ma'am, as always. Somi, hi. Who else? Swami is here from Jaipur. The Aryan Raj is here. Gajapati Dev from Odisha. Good evening, sir. Abhishek Shukla live from Kanpur. Raghuvir Solanki is a Vishwa student. Sumit Agarwal, Ola. Tech G78807. Namaste. Aswal 24. General Subutai is here with us. Swami says, have I seen The Thing? Quite a movie. I've seen it, yes. Science fiction. Horror of some sort. Yes, good movie. Vijay Vaghela, good to see you, sir. Who else? Everybody else. Where is it? Vidit Chatralia. Okay. SKR 7733 is here from Takshashila, India. Well, good to see you, sir, from Takshashila, India. CVS2K6 from Andhra Pradesh. Namaskaram ji. Sujit Shanagunda, good to see you. General Subutai is here from Mongolia, of course. Yes. Anurag Dikshit. Mary Kane, good to see you, ma'am. Good morning. Vihang Kurane from Mumbai and everybody else. Okay, so let us get Apurva Dityaja. Yes. Dragons 123 Slayer is also here. Abhishek Srivastav says Dharma will rise, Adharma will lose. One certainly hopes so, and we should work towards that. Okay. Turti Patil, namaste, hello. Tech G7, namaste. And Anonymous Scientist is here from Lucknow. Okay, enough of greetings. Let us get going with the questions. What do we have today? Arun Ramesh, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much indeed. Bhaskar Bandit says, Privyet, sir, Bhaskar ji. Hope I'm well. Yes, I'm well, thank you. I hope you are well as well. Very ghastly, disturbing info coming out from the Epstein files. Yuck. Some entity allegedly trying to arm twist the US to strike Iran anytime now, question mark. Also, it seems Trump won't win the midterms. Well, the Epstein files revelations that are coming out are utterly ghastly, disgusting, disturbing, concerning. I mean, inhuman, monstrous. I don't have the words to describe what we are seeing. I mean, every conspiracy theory is turning out to be true. Everything that was described as conspiracy theories, all of that has turned out to be true. The Pizzagate stuff. I mean, the Satanism, all the stuff. I mean, it's horrific. Howard Lutnick, what a depraved, disgusting person. And what about his boss, Donald J. Trump? Where is he today? He's not on X. He's not on Truth Social. Truth Social. I mean, Nikki Haley. I mean, what do I say about these people? Monsters. The people who are ruling that country, the United States, are monsters. Right? And this nation goes around preaching human rights and democracy to the world. I mean, what can I say? Terrible. The question Bhaskar Bandit is asking is that, is there some entity that's allegedly trying to arm twist the US to strike Iran anytime now? Well, that's what some people are speculating. Some people are speculating. Let me just say it straight. Some people are speculating that this... see, the question is, how come Donald J. Trump's government has released these files which prove that this guy is a pedophile and a pervert and God knows what else, Donald J. Trump? How come his government has released stuff that is so essentially incriminating about him, about the president? Does he have no control over his government? Does somebody else control the government of the US, the FBI and whatnot? Who could that somebody else be? So some people are speculating that the United States is controlled by Israel. Okay, that's speculation by some people. The US is controlled by Israel, and the FBI is controlled by Israel, and everything is controlled by the Israelis. And the Israelis want Trump to strike at Iran, and he has not done this so far. That's why they're pressurizing him by releasing some part of the Epstein files. Maybe there's more about Trump. Who knows? So that's the speculation that some people are indulging in. What do I think? I have no idea. I could not possibly say whether it's true or not. So I don't know. Yeah, if hypothetically, theoretically, Israel does control the United States, and Trump is dragging his feet about striking Iran, then, well, from a logical perspective, kind of makes sense. But does Israel really control the US, like some people say? I don't know about that. It seems that Trump will not win the midterm elections. That's November this year, right? That's still a way away. In the US, you know what? Who knows? He may even win the midterms. I don't know. The people of the US seem to be fine with this sort of stuff. I have no idea. But yeah, it looks likely that he will lose the midterms. We will see about that. It will make him a weaker president than what he is right now, unless he does some fantastic things, in which case everything is forgiven. So we'll see about that. Bhaskar Bandit says, Balochis tore through 12 cities yesterday. Some reports are even saying that Corps Commander Pakistani army in Quetta has left. How is the Balochistan angle connected to Iran-US instability right now? Look, the US is pro-Pakistan. The US wants, it needs Pakistan to be the strong, stable nation, reasonably stable at least, so that it counterbalances, offsets India. So so Pakistan is important for the US. And if something goes wrong in Balochistan, like what we see right now, it's not good for Pakistan, which means it's not good for American interests. The Americans need a stable Pakistan, not just to counterbalance India, but also to potentially do something in Iran whenever the time they decide is right. So if they want to, let's say, not go ahead with a full strike on Iran, but destabilize Iran gradually through terrorism, the Americans do that, right? They've used Pakistan against India like this in the past for decades. So the Americans in that case would need Pakistani terrorists to enter Iran from the east, right? But if Balochistan is no longer in Pakistan's full control, then that doesn't work. That doesn't happen. So I would say this is not working out well for the US if Balochistan is unstable, if Balochi rebels are succeeding in taking over cities and maybe even Quetta possibly, right? So I would not say that the US is behind this. So who else could be behind it? Well, I could not possibly speculate. Yeah, so I don't know how the US could be behind this. Obviously, Balochistan, if you look at the map, okay, let's open the map, all right? Let's put the map on the screen and let's look at Balochistan. It clearly is a border region between the temporary nation and Iran as well as Afghanistan. So let's look for Balochistan. Okay. Balochistan, Pakistan, temporarily part of Pakistan. So once again, it doesn't give you the outline, but yeah. So Balochistan is this western part of Pakistan. Some of it is it borders Afghanistan, Quetta, as you can see over here, and Iran as well. So if Balochistan is unstable, the Americans can't really use Pakistan to push terrorists into Iran, which could be a problem for the Americans. So I doubt the Americans would be behind this. Why would they destabilize their own asset? Doesn't make sense. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Okay, Aniket says how Indian and English days are the same, like Ravivar Sunday. Well, it's even that way in French. Okay, so Ravivar is dimanche in French. Dimanche, I don't know what's the origin, but Somavar, Monday, is lundi. Lundi comes from lune, which means the moon. Monday is lundi, is Somwar. Monday is moon day. Somwar, Soma is also moon. It's not just English, it's also French. Okay. Tuesday is Thursday. Tyr is this Nordic deity that is the counterpart of the Roman god Mars, which is also Mangal. Mangalwar, Tuesday, and Mardi in French. Once again, Mars. What's Wednesday? Wednesday is Woden or Odin, right? That's Bud. That's Mercury. Mercredi in French, and so on. It can you can go through all the days of the week. They all are the same. They have the same meaning, whether it is Sanskrit, whether it's Hindi, whether it is English, whether it's French. I suppose other European languages as well, which shows that there is some ancient common tradition that is the foundation of all the names of the days in various Indo-European languages. Right? That's what it tells us. Aniket says, baseball or cricket, which one is hard, interesting, complex? Well, I'm not really familiar with the rules of baseball. Baseball, I think, has multiple innings, and a six is a home run and that sort of thing. And there's this, you can only play in this particular angle, that sort of thing. Cricket, it's like 360 degrees. I think overall it looks like cricket is more complex. Interesting. Well, if you're American, cricket is boring for you. If you're Indian, baseball, I'm sure, is boring. So that's a subjective question. For me, I don't really know the rules of baseball, so I can't say whether I would find baseball interesting or not. As far as cricket is concerned, it's pretty complex, for sure. Okay. Sharan says, how can Ruhollah Khomeini be Indian? His ancestors were from Iran and settled here. Many Indian Shia Muslims, Fuad Mirza Ismail, Firoz Khan, Hassan Jahangir, also trace their roots to Iran, 19th century. So how can Ruhollah Khomeini be Indian is the question that Sharon is asking, and it's a valid question. Of course, it's a legitimate question. So let's look at, first of all, who was Ruhollah Khomeini. Let's take a look at the gentleman's face. Ruhollah Khomeini. So the former supreme leader of Iran, Persia. This is Ruhollah Khomeini. Okay. And if you see his nickname that he used for himself, it was Hindi. Okay. This is in Hindi, obviously. No. Al-Hindi, was it? Al-Hindi. He called himself Al-Hindi or something. The suffix Hindi, meaning from India, was used by his grandfather and sometimes by Ruhollah Khomeini himself in his poetry. So he used to write ghazals, okay, Ruhollah Khomeini, and in some of his ghazals he uses the nickname Hindi for himself. So what's the deal? His grandfather was from, his grandfather's name was Sayyid Ahmed Musavi Hindi. Okay, he was born in Kintur in Uttar Pradesh in the 1800s, and his parents, I mean his father at least, his ancestors, they migrated to India from Iran in the 18th century. Now, Ruhollah Khomeini's grandfather was born in India, but then he, at a certain age, he left India and he went to Iraq and then to Iran, and then he settled down in the town of Khomein in Iran, and that's how the name Khomeini comes about. So that's the story. Now, his grandfather was born in India, for sure. We know that. Who he called himself Sayyid Ahmed Musavi Hindi. So he was born in India, but obviously that doesn't necessarily make you Indian if your ancestors were Persian. Did his father have an Indian mother? We don't know for sure. His father definitely did not marry Indian women. His father, I think, married 3 women, whatever it is. Sorry, grandfather. So we don't know for sure, but he called himself Hindi. And even Khomeini, Ruhollah Khomeini, called himself Hindi at times. So that's the Hindi or Indian origin. Genetically, I'm not sure how much Indianness is there in Ruhollah Khomeini or his grandfather. I'm not sure of that. But they called themselves Hindi. His grandfather called himself Hindi, and Khomeini himself called himself Hindi. That's why one can say that he had an Indian grandfather. Now, you make of it whatever you want. If you don't like them to be called Indian or Hindi, that's your choice. All right? Okay. Bhaskar Bandit says, how Bharat to make use of its rare earth reserves while preserving nature. Given how environment damaging rare earth mining is, some suggest in North Burma, where China mines them, a lot of cancer happens. Look, mining is going to be damaging. Mining is going to be terrible. Mining means you tear up the earth, dig it up, extract, ore, which is earth with a little bit of whatever substance you're looking for. Then you process it through chemical processes and other processes, which are pretty damaging to the environment. And that's how you extract what you're looking for. And it's not just rare earth mining that's damaging to the environment. It's essentially all mining that's damaging to the environment. Okay. Now, the US, it also has rare earths on its territory. I'm not sure how much of the world's reserves the US has, but the US also has it. But the US doesn't mine it. The US prefers to have other countries do that, the mining and the purification process, because it's environmentally damaging. The US wants North America to be as clean and beautiful and pretty and as undamaged as possible. That's why the Americans, they export their garbage, their trash to third world countries for it to be recycled or done whatever these countries want. The Americans don't want all this trash in America. That's why they export it to other countries. Now, India has probably the world's largest rare earth reserves. Okay, but we haven't done a thing about it, and that's why we are completely dependent on China right now. So let's say we go ahead and we want to operationalize the rare earth reserves. We want to start mining them, and not just mining. Whatever ore we extract, we want to process it, and we want to be the end-to-end, the consumer of the thing. We extract, we mine and extract it, we process it, and we use the end product. And maybe we even export it because we are the largest, nation with reserves. So in that case, we're gonna have to do mining and processing. Now, you are right. If you look at northern Burma, I've shown it in the past on Google on the maps. You have all these rare earth mines in northern Burma, right west of the Chinese border with northern Burma, and all of that mining and extracting and processing is done, and then it's shipped off to China. Okay, and these rare earth reserves in northern Burma are one of the reasons for the civil war in Burma, which is a proxy war between the Chinese and the Americans. And if you do all this processing, this damaging processing, with chemicals and whatnot, you're gonna have side effects of that. I suppose you're gonna have more cancer, like you're saying. I mean, it's weird because in the far east of India, states like Manipur, the incidence of cancer is much higher. It seems to be quite high. So this is going to be an issue. So how can India make use of its reserves while preserving nature? Well, you try to preserve nature as far as possible. Wherever the rare earth deposits are, you do the mining, and you make sure that the processing is done as cleanly as possible. But beyond a point, you can't do a thing about it. Beyond a point, there's going to be some damage to the environment, and that's just the way it is. That is something you either accept or you simply don't mind the stuff. That's it. I'm sure there are ways in which you can process the rare earths, the rare earth ore, in which so you can make sure you use as clean a process as possible for for purifying or extracting the end product from the ore. Make the process as clean as possible. Don't dump the byproducts into the ground, process it or clean it or whatever. So I'm sure there are steps we can take to ensure that the damage is limited, but there's going to be some damage. Bhaskar Bandit says, if a faction from within Gehra Rajya allegedly are doing demographic re-engineering of EU, a possibility we discussed earlier, with intention of more EU control, how allegedly will they feel about this India-EU free trade deal? What they will feel about the India-EU free trade deal will probably not be very connected to what they are doing to the EU. See, whatever they're doing to the EU is a long-term game they're playing. They want to possibly introduce some cultural or religious elements into Europe that in the future they would like to control because, of the way things are. But what the EU is doing with India, it's more immediate. The demographic re-engineering game is a long-term game. What the EU is doing is more immediate, and obviously even that the Americans, let's say Gehra Rajya or Deep State is American, they won't be pleased about this because this gives the EU options beyond the US, right? It gives the EU access to a very major market, and it's win-win for India as well as the EU. It reduces the pressure on both entities, India as well as EU. So what they will feel about this is that they will not be pleased about it, and they may actually try and pressurize the EU to pull out of this deal, or to maybe delay the deal or something, because the ratification of the deal will take some time, maybe 6 months, maybe by the end of this year. By the time, the Americans will have plenty of time to pressurize the EU for sure. So their being displeased about this FTA will actually have little connection with whatever they are allegedly doing about the demographic re-engineering of Europe. Totally different processes, but they will be displeased about it, and they will try and perhaps make this not happen if they can. Aniket says, why is it difficult to train cats than dogs, but relatively easy to train tigers, lions, cat family than wolves, hyenas, dog family? Hyenas are not dog family. Hyenas are feline creatures. That's a great question, first of all. Okay, let's see. Are hyenas dogs or cats? Okay. Are hyenas a feline or canine? And you'll find that they are felines. Oh, they are Hyacinidae, whatever that is. They are more closely related to cats than dogs. Okay, they are closer to Feliformia than Caniformia because of their evolutionary history. They have a common ancestor with mongooses, civets, and cats, despite their dog-like appearance from convergent evolution. So their family is Hyenidae. Hyenas. Okay, so they are neither cats nor dogs, but they are closer to cats than to dogs. Okay. So why is it difficult to train cats than dogs? I mean, there are dogs you can't train. We have the Indian wild dog, the dhole. You know what the dhole looks like? It's a red dog. Okay? Dhole dog. This Indian wild dog, you can't train it. I mean, have you ever heard of somebody domesticating this dog? These dogs live in forests. They don't live in people's backyards, or they don't live in people's houses. These I don't can these guys be domesticated? Let me see. Can be domesticated. Let's see. Can it be domesticated? Cannot be domesticated. They are social and intelligent. They are wild and they don't like human beings and so on, etc. They are aggressive, unpredictable, and unsuitable for pets. Despite being a part of the dog species, it's a dog. It's not a different species or a subspecies. It's a dog, and yet you can't adopt them. You can't domesticate them. They are wild and predictable, and they don't like to be with humans. So it depends. It's the same species. It's a kind of dog. So it's you could say it's a different breed, so to say. It's not really a different breed. What's it called? Land race. It's a different land race of dog. Okay, but you can't domesticate it. And now let's talk about cats versus dogs. Very different creatures, right? Very different creatures. Cats essentially are nocturnal animals, first of all. Nocturnal, and you'll see they always look lazy because in the daytime they actually are supposed to sleep. That because they have adapted to living with humans, they kind of are semi-awake during the daytime. Sometimes they're awake, but they prefer to sleep. But the moment it's dark, they are totally active and they live a different parallel life. Cats do. And there are various cat species. You have the standard house cat, which we humans are familiar with. We have different species of wild cats. We obviously have the what's it called, the cheetah. We also have the lion, tigers, and all. I mean, look at lions and tigers. They are almost the same size. Tigers are slightly larger, but they are so different. Lions are so social, and all the tigers are solitary creatures, right? So each species has its own characteristics. I mean, cheetahs. Cheetahs are you can domesticate a cheetah just like a house cat. Cheetahs don't really hurt humans, and cheetahs even vocalize like the meows like house cats, and they are very easy to domesticate. So these are different species, and they all have their own characteristics. Our house cats, well, they are happy to live with humans. They have no issue with being friendly with humans, most of them. But you can't train them. They won't be trained. You can train dogs to do tricks, stand on two legs and do that and roll over and all. Cats, no, thank you. So you know what they say. It's kind of a funny thing to say, but humans tame dogs, but cats tame humans. That sort of thing. So the cat is the master of the house, and it's not the human. That sort of thing. And cats apparently they see humans like a really dumb cat. Dogs see the human being as the boss, right? Dogs are pack animals, and they always have the alpha dog. Wolves, dogs, they all have the alpha dog, alpha wolf. So dogs see humans as the alphas. Cats see humans as dumb creatures. So the way they see humans is different, and they are not amenable to being trained to do anything they want. Aniket says, why does Russia consider Ukraine joining NATO as a red line, but not Finland, Estonia, Latvia, which also shares border with Russia? Good question once again. So let's take a look at the borders of Russia. Yes, let's take a look at borders. Right. Okay. So here we are looking at Eurasia. Let's go northwards. North of India, you have you have Tajikistan, then Kyrgyzstan, then Kazakhstan, then Russia, right north of India. Now, if you go westwards, then you have all these neighboring nations of Russia, Belarus, Ukraine. These are historically part of Russia or Slavic peoples. The Belarusian people are Slavic, just like Russians. The Ukrainians are Slavic, just like Russians. The Serbians are Slavic people, just like Russians. And then you have these nations here, Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, etc. The Baltic nations and the Nordic nations. Okay, so why is Ukraine joining NATO a red line, but not Finland? Well, multiple reasons. Look, Ukraine was part of the USSR. Ukraine is a Slavic nation, right? And it's a much larger nation. And NATO has never had a presence there. When it comes to Finland, Estonia, Latvia, see, even Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia were part of the USSR, but they are not Slavic peoples. They are obviously Indo-Europeans. So some of these languages are very closely related to Sanskrit, which is a totally different matter. But they are not really Russians. They are not really Slavic people. Their culture, etc., is different from the Slavic culture. And Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia are tiny little nations. And so the Russians are not that concerned about those nations. When it comes to Finland or the other Nordic nations, once again, totally different culture, totally different context and history. They were never part of the USSR. But Ukraine, it's a strategically important nation, very large nation, second largest nation in Europe if you exclude Russia, if you consider Russia to be European, and huge territory, huge the breadbasket of Europe, Slavic people once again. So because of these multiple factors and the fact that Ukraine is the original Russia, I mean the first ever capital city of the Rus people, the Kievan Rus, was Kiev. The original capital of the Rus people was Kiev, not Moscow. Moscow comes much later. Moscow comes like 400, 500 years later. The original capital was Kiev. So because of historical reasons, because of cultural reasons, because of ethnic reasons, and so on and so forth, all these things, that's why Ukraine is a red line. Those other nations are not that important. Okay, DN0HR9879 says, why did Kushim need 28,086 measures of barley? Love your content in your Norse. Skull. Kushim. I'm not aware of this now. This seems to be some interesting folk tale or something. Let's find out Kushim and 28,000, etc. measures of barley. I'm not aware of this. Let me learn what you're talking about. So who's Kushim? Will that give us a clue? Who's Kushim? Okay. The earliest known recorded name of an individual in human history. Are you kidding me? Okay. Appearing on Sumerian clay tablets dating around 3400 to 3000 BC. Found in ancient Mesopotamia, modern Iraq, these tablets are administrative records, suggesting Kushim was an accountant or scribe responsible for tracking barley rather than a king or a hero. The first signature. The name appears on several tablets dealing with the 29,086 measures of barley. One tablet contains a note interpreted as 29,086 measures of barley, 37 months, Kushim. So Kushim's name highlights the writing was initially developed for practical economic purposes, specifically tracking resources, rather than literature or dealing with the deeds of rulers. It's unclear if Kushim refers to a specific person or is a job title for a record keeper. The name is prominently highlighted in Yuval Noah Harari's book Sapiens. Okay, Sapiens, to illustrate the origins of writing and bureaucracy. Okay, got it. So he probably was some kind of record keeper, and his job was to track the consignments and shipments of barley and so on. When it comes to Harari's book, I haven't read it. I tried reading it, I could not. It wasn't for me. Harari. You know how Harari approaches the human species? He approaches the human species. I mean, the way he writes about the human species, it's like, someone who is doing a dissection and is writing about, someone's dead, and the dead body is lying on your dissection table. It's a cadaver, and you are slicing it up, and you're, clinically coldly talking about, all this stuff, and just denying that this is. You say that this is just an object lying in front of me. These are the organs, and these are the characteristics I'm seeing. And you're denying that this was a person, that this person had a atma, a soul, all of that. So, Harari's writing is cold. It's dismissive of the human spirit and all. I can't stand his writing, actually. He may sound very intelligent to many people. To me, I can't stand Harari's writing. Anyway, I'm glad that he wrote about Kushim and that. I was not aware of this. So yeah, we don't know why Kushim needed 28,086 measures of barley. Probably he was a record keeper, tracking consignments and storage and whatnot, and that's why he recorded this. There's also the other guy, right? Ea Nasser. He was a copper merchant, and the world's first recorded customer complaint is about Ea Nasser delivering poor grade of copper. So that's another interesting story from Mesopotamia. Okay, Aniket says, Scott Basanti crying because of FTA. Is India handled US well? Look, let's not be all triumphant and start gloating. The US is way more powerful than India. They can, even if they want, stop the India-EU trade deal. Okay, they can apply pressure on Europe, on the EU people, on the key people in Europe, and who knows. So Scott Bessent is actually, not as annoying as Howard Lutnick, but yeah. So he's upset. Trump is upset. The US administration, the US Trump regime is upset. His officials are upset. And they may actually do something about it. They may actually apply pressure on the EU. So let's not be all start celebrating too early. Let it be. Let the FTA be ratified and become operational. And then we can gently celebrate. Aniket says, India is dumping US Treasury bonds and buying more and more gold and silver. Is India making itself sanctions proof? Is India preparing for war? Look, US Treasury bonds, yeah, it's okay. So we are dumping US Treasury bonds, we're buying gold and silver. That doesn't make India necessarily sanctions proof. What makes you sanctions proof is that if you can bypass SWIFT. What is SWIFT? SWIFT is the system that the Americans control by which you do transfers of large sums of money across nations. The SWIFT system. Okay, let's see what AI has to say about SWIFT. What is the SWIFT system? The SWIFT, Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. It's a secure global messaging network, not a bank itself, used by 11,000 plus financial institutions in 200 plus countries to securely transmit payment instructions. Headquartered in Belgium, essentially owned by the Americans or controlled by the Americans. It streamlines cross-border transfers using standardized BIC codes. I mean, if you want to transfer money as an individual to a nation, you have to enter a BIC code, okay, for the bank that you're transferring to, and obviously the account details of the person. So yeah, SWIFT/BIC codes. Anybody who has done international monetary transactions knows what SWIFT and BIC codes are. Without SWIFT, without access to SWIFT, your country essentially is cut off from the global financial system, right? So SWIFT is one of the big means of imposing sanctions. You simply cut the nation off from the SWIFT system, and the nation can't trade with the world because the Americans control the system. So if India wants to become sanctions proof, India has to create or participate in some kind of alternative to SWIFT. And maybe there is something being done about this. India and the BRICS nations and so on. Yeah. So that makes you somewhat sanctions proof to some extent, which means that using the alternative system, you can trade with certain countries, but maybe not all countries, but maybe the ones you need to, and so on. So yeah, India is obviously buying more gold, and India has the world's largest private gold collection in the world. Indian ladies, I suppose, yeah. It's larger than all the gold reserves of the top 10 countries put together. So we have that. Silver also is important, obviously. So is India preparing for war? I think India is preparing for all eventualities. Let's put it that way. India is preparing for more volatility in the global economic and financial order. It makes sense the way things are going right now. Aniket says, why are countries purchasing less US Treasury bonds? The US is adding $1 trillion debt every 75 days. It will cross 50 trillion in 2026. Where is this going? See, US Treasury bonds. What's a Treasury bond? It's a bond, right? The US Treasury bond is a piece of paper that is worth a certain amount of money. It says maybe $100, maybe $1,000, whatever. And if I am a sovereign nation, let's say I'm India, and I buy one of these treasury bonds, let's say worth $100, then the US owes me $100. Now, why do nations buy these treasury bonds? Because historically, these treasury bonds were good investments. Let's say you purchase $1 million in treasury bonds, and if the US dollar and the US economy is strong, then in 2-3 years it may be worth $2 million. Let's say hypothetically, right? So these used to be good investments. But today, the way the Americans are printing money recklessly, these treasury bonds aren't good investments. That's why nations are staying away from these treasury bonds, which means then and the way this whole thing is structured, that's how the US gains money. That's how the US becomes it's able to purchase things from other nations and so on. So because of the way the Americans have been printing money recklessly the past few years, especially since Obama came to power, the US Treasury bonds are becoming less and less attractive as investments. And that's why countries are now being very cautious about whether to purchase these bonds or not. And countries are now increasingly opting not to purchase Treasury bonds. Right. So where is this going? The US economy is a huge bubble. The US dollar is backed by only brute military power. It has no real value of its own. It's just paper. It's worthless paper, actually. This entire global economy is the US bullying other nations to assign value to paper. And by doing that, they are able to control the world. One day this bubble is going to burst. So Hani Sharma says, I just want to leave a mark on those whom I talk to. How do I do that? And create an interesting personality, even though my life is boring. Continued. How do I make others want to know me and care about me? While trying to do this, I just end up copying personality of those I find interesting. Will telling interesting stories help? Though I have no such stories. What can I do to leave a mark on people? What you can do to leave a mark on people is do some meaningful work. What makes a person interesting? You have to ask yourself this simple question: what makes a person interesting? Is it the way the person speaks? I mean, look, there are people who don't really speak very well, and yet they are fascinating. Look at Elon Musk. He doesn't have the most polished manner of speaking, right? He stutters, he stumbles, he does ums and ahs and all, and yet he's fascinating. Okay, he does leave a mark on every person he speaks to. Okay, it's not because he's got an interesting personality. It's because he's doing extremely meaningful work, which has made him very, very rich, the richest person in the world. So my point is, if you want to leave a mark on people you talk to, it's not by creating an interesting personality. It's not by copying the personality of people you find interesting. Okay, it's not by telling interesting stories. It's by being yourself, by becoming a person of substance. So you have to do something meaningful, something that most people don't do. You have to find something like that from your, you have to first introspect. You have to think about what are the things that you find interesting, that you find motivating. Don't think about today. Go back to the time when you were 5 years old. Most people can remember things from when they were 5 years old. What interested you when you were 5? What fascinated you? What did you want to do when you grew up? Who did you want to become when you grew up? Those are the things that will motivate you for the rest of your life, not various passing fads or whatever. So find something meaningful, some kind of mission that you need to go on in your life. Okay, and maybe it cannot be your career. Maybe perhaps for everybody, you can't make your passion your career, but you can keep it as a meaningful thing in life and work on that. Construct something, build something, create something that will automatically make you an interesting person. Okay, then you don't have to speak in a fascinating way or something. Just be yourself and talk about what you're doing. Your passion will shine through. Okay, so telling interesting stories, what's the point? Right? What's the point? Whose stories will you tell? You have to tell your story. You have to talk about what you're doing. So that's what you do. That's how you leave a mark on people. Why are fascinating people fascinating? It's not because of the way they speak or the way they dress or the way they look. It's because of what they do. That's what makes them fascinating. Every fascinating person is doing something meaningful, something that is impactful, and something that most people can't do. That's what makes them interesting. Think about all the people that you find interesting, right? And ask yourself, what is it which makes this person unique? Some of them may be good speakers and all that, but it's not generally that makes them interesting. There are many people who are smooth talkers. No one cares. So be an interesting person. Do something meaningful and interesting. That is what will make you leave a mark on everyone you speak to. And it won't leave a mark on everyone you speak to. There will be some people who don't care. Well, who cares about them, right? Okay. All the best, sir. Anish Sharma. Okay. Vidhi Manyar. Vidhi G says, Nipah virus. What's coming now, especially for India? Look, Vidhi G, the world is full of viruses. Take a glass of seawater. This is not seawater, but take a glass of seawater and put that under the electron microscope. You'll find new viruses that humans have never seen before. The world is full of viruses. Viruses are genetic ideas. They're small. The viruses have small strands of DNA. Their genome is typically much smaller than the human genome. And sometimes they do nothing. Most of the times, a virus does nothing to humans. Sometimes they are kind of beneficial to humans, which is why if you look at the human genome, a significant percentage of the human genome is actually absorbed viral genome. We have absorbed viral DNA, and a lot of the DNA is part of our DNA today. But there are some viruses that are bad genetic ideas, and that they kill their hosts or make life miserable for their hosts. And those are the bad ones. And it looks like this Nipah virus is one of those nasty ones, perhaps. Is it really becoming a problem in some parts of India? I'm not sure what's coming especially for India. There's always some viruses floating around that are potentially nasty. We have to be careful about them. We have to identify them and take the measures to isolate them and so on. Hopefully this doesn't become a big deal. That's all I can say at this point in time. I hope it doesn't become a big deal. Yeah. Aniket says Rig Veda mentions Saraswati as a river in its prime. So, what is the real prime of Saraswati? 4000 BC when monsoons started declining, or 10,000 BC when Satluj goes east, or 50,000 BC when the Yamuna goes west? As far as we are concerned, the last time the river was in her prime is the real prime. There may have been other primes, but from our perspective, look, what are we interested in? All of us. We are interested in having a reasonably good date of the writing of the Rig Veda. We want to figure out when the Rig Veda was first written. Okay? And from that perspective, which is the prime of the Saraswati we are interested in, the last time it was in its prime, which is about 6000 BC. The river Saraswati was last in her prime around 6000 BC. That's when the Indian rainy season starts very gradually declining, monotonically declining. And the river kind of dried out in the southern half of its course half around 2000 BC or some around that time. So 6000 BC is the time the river was last in her prime. There have been other, it's been a long-lasting river, you know. So all those other primes we are not concerned about. The last time the river was at her maximal prime, which is about 6000 BC, that's what we are interested in. Of course, it's had all of that, right? The Satluj goes east and all that, all of that. But that's part of the older history, which is not that relevant for our purpose, which is the dating of the Rig Veda. Hari Sharma says, how do I increase my attention span whenever I'm taking a lecture? After every 2 minutes, my mind is wandering everywhere. I don't even watch reels. How do you increase your attention span whenever you are watching, taking a lecture? Well, one thing you can do is take notes. Take notes. Tell yourself every 30 seconds, I'll write down a line of what I'm hearing, maybe the keywords, maybe the important points. So if you're doing something actively, you're forced to pay attention. If you're sitting and watching as if you're watching a movie, your mind will wander. But if you're doing something actively, like what is the guy saying or the lady saying, oh, that's an important point, let me write it down. So write down the key points, that sort of thing. Stay active. As long as you're actually actively doing something, your mind won't really be able to wander. So that's what you do, sir. Hani Sharma says, did you get a chance to watch Tumbad? If yes, tell us how you feel about it. I still haven't watched it. I'm not sure which OTT it's available on. And yeah, so I haven't watched it yet. But when I do watch it, I will let you all know for sure. I know that it's a great movie. So, right. Ansh Divu says, Sar, you always recommend government reforms for education. Why not focus our energies on getting government out of the way and starting ground up alternatives? Okay, how do we do that is the question. Look, in the current system, we vote for the government, we pay taxes to the government, and the government, which is made up of our elected representatives, carries out the work for us. That's the deal. And well, in their wisdom, they are not concerned about education. They think that the current education system is fantastic. Best education system in the world. Yes, outstanding. NEP 2020, brilliant. That's what they think. So in their mind, it is great. In their mind, maybe I'm an idiot. Okay. So then what do you do? Focusing our energies on getting government out of the way. How do you do that? Are you talking about what? What are you talking about? Are you suggesting we carry out a people's revolution? You can't do that. I mean, you can, but that will not be great for the country. Because if you have an internal, let's say completely hypothetical internal revolution in the country, hypothetically, I'm not saying I want it, then national security becomes a casualty. Your neighbors will start biting at your borders and take out chunks of your territory. Right? That's a very genuine possibility. Your GDP will plummet. Your economy will crash. Your industries will crash. There'll be chaos. Do you want that? We don't want it. So what can we do to get the government out of the way? We can't get it out of the way. So the people we elect have to make changes. Or the alternative is that someday in the future, maybe 20, 50, 100 years down the future, some great leader will emerge, will take the nation by the scruff of its neck and just change the system and impose a new system on the nation, which will make the nation better. Because currently we have a rotten system, actually. Right? Starting ground up alternatives. What can we do to start a ground up alternative? Create a ground up education system. With that education system, will it help people? Let's say we start a ground up alternative of a different education system. As long as the current job market is such that it demands degrees, if you create a new education system, it won't be that relevant. Hopefully, soon we will have a situation where companies don't demand degrees; they demand your experience. They'll ask for what work have you done, what are you capable of, what skills do you have. In that case, once that happens, the education system will slowly start becoming irrelevant. So it's easy to talk about these things. Let's focus our energies on getting the government out of the way. But how do you practically do it? It's almost next to impossible. That's just the truth, right? I'm not being defeatist or whatever here. I'm not being pessimistic. You can't take on the might of the state and try to get the government out of the way. Even if you succeed, you're going to harm the nation significantly. You don't want to do that. M. Keshav says, does INS vassalization inch closer if Iran? Does India's vassalization inch closer if Iran falls? Somewhat, yeah. It becomes slightly more likely that India will get vassalized if Iran falls, to some extent. Yeah, maybe 5%, maybe slightly more. Okay, Pranjal Chaurasia has gifted 1 channel membership. Thank you very much, sir. Indeed, thank you so much. Very kind of you. Abhishek Srivastav says, your views on Epstein files latest videos. I haven't seen any of the videos. I have seen whatever has come out on X, on what was formerly called Twitter, the screenshots of whatever. I have not even opened the links or whatever. And what I've seen is that Trump is mentioned a gazillion times. He seems to be one of the nastiest pieces of work on the planet, Trump. Okay. An absolute, I mean, I don't have the right words, polite words for him to describe the kind of person he is, Trump. And Howard Lutnick is another SOB. So that's what I know about. Nikki Haley is involved. The Clintons, I'm sure, are involved, and so on and so forth. Elon Musk is dancing around the periphery. And some Indian politicians are trying to involve the Indian Prime Minister and who so on, but it's not going to work out at all. And some other Indian political connections seem to be there, which I shall not mention here. Overall, this is what I'm aware of. I've just glanced through things and I've been disgusted with what I've seen, especially Trump. I have not seen any of the videos. Thank you. I am not going to watch those. I have no interest in watching. I mean, spoiling my day and spoiling my appetite by watching those videos. I'm not going to watch that. Netset Grep says, age is a barrier to education in India, but not in the US. I've heard of a few people who complete their PhDs when they're in their 60s or whatever. So it looks like, at least for the higher education PhD or whatever, you can do it when you're in your 60s or even 70s, I suppose. When it comes to other degrees, for let's say a master's degree or a bachelor's degree, is there a maximum age limit or something? Okay, let's see. Let's find out. Let's Google this. Does India have an age limit? Does India have an age limit for bachelor degree? Bachelor degree. Let's see. Do we have no maximum age limit? There's a minimum age limit, apparently. Yeah, minimum age of 17 or 18. But what if I'm a super genius at the age of 12? I want to do a bachelor's degree. They won't allow me. That is sad. So there is no maximum, no, there's no upper age limit. What about a master's degree? Master's degree. Do we have something? Generally, there's no upper age limit. Okay. No general age barrier. No age limit. No restrictions. Some, in rare cases, specialized or government things may have age restrictions as part of their institution's eligibility criteria. What about 12th standard, 12th pass degree? Let's see. Do we have that? Generally, no upper age limit. So even at the age of 35, you can get your 12th standard done, I suppose. What about 10th? 10th. Let's see. Generally, no maximum. Okay, so we get it. Okay, all right. So age is a barrier to education in India? Not quite. I mean, there's no official barrier. Yeah, that's what we just saw. Maybe you're trying to say something else, but I'm not able to get what something else could be. What we have seen is that there officially are no major barriers. Pratik Shinoy says, who's winning the proxy war in Myanmar? Is India involved? India is not involved. India is a spectator. Or if India is involved, it may not be involved in the best possible way. Okay. I mean, what's happening in Manipur is a disaster. Right now, the media is not watching it because the situation seems to have stabilized in the absolutely wrong way. The Manipur is a foreign occupation, at least half of it, and the native people are suffering. Now, who's winning the proxy war in Myanmar? I haven't been keeping track of what's happening. There are all these little factions who are fighting each other. I think the government has kind of stabilized the situation to some extent. The government that's based out of Nyapidao. Earlier, the capital used to be Rangoon. Now it's Nyapidao. So I think there is some stabilization that's happened. It's not like the proxy war isn't raging that much, but the Chinese are definitely involved in the northern factions, right? And the northern factions are selling the rare earths to the Chinese, and India may be involved in some, diplomatic way or whatever to some extent, but yeah, we aren't fighting or taking sides as far as I know in the fighting. I could be wrong about that, but not officially taking sides. Unofficially, God knows what we are doing. Shashwat Ames says, what are the difficulties of the next leader or prime minister of India? What are the difficulties the next leader or prime minister of India would face? PM Modi will have to choose his successor someday. Well, the prime minister, Mr. Modi, can choose a successor, but he can only choose a candidate for his successor. The people have to vote for that person, right? It's not like in the Chinese Communist Party when the Politburo decides who's the next leader. It's not like a dynastic rule where the king decides which of his sons is going to be the next ruler. So what are the difficulties the next leader in the prime minister of India will face, whoever it is? Well, I mean, it remains to be seen if they see it as a difficulty or as an asset. I mean, if they think that the bureaucracy is an asset, then that's not a difficulty for them. But if they really want to reform the country and reform the bureaucracy, that's going to be a big hurdle for them, a big difficulty. If they're trying to reform the bureaucracy, they're going to face all kinds of issues and lack of cooperation and whatnot, potentially. Right? I'm not saying the bureaucracy is a necessarily evil or bad thing. There are plenty of fantastic, great people in the bureaucracy, but overall, it's in desperate need of reforms. Various other institutions that I shall not name here may not cooperate, are definitely once again crying need of reform. Getting the states to cooperate, because India is a very federal nation, and a lot of areas are state subjects. So even if the central government wants to do certain things, the states may not cooperate, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? You just have to wait another 5 years for the government to hopefully change potentially. So these are the problems that India faces. Every leader of India faces, and of course, these are the internal problems I'm talking about. The education system, obviously, I keep on talking about that. No one cares, I suppose. The quality of the population. The population is hooked to the drug of cash transfers, unconditional cash transfers. I mean, if you want to give cash transfers to people, those have to be conditional, right? Some requirements have to be met. But no, this is all unconditional. So some of these issues we only have created. This government has created. So all these issues the next leader will have to face. And if they if that person is a leader who wants to reform the country, they're going to face significant problems. If the person is someone who thinks the country is in the best shape possible, no problems whatsoever. Keep it going. Another 5 years. Okay, Hyphen says, dumb question. No, there's no dumb questions. I know wormholes are like shortcuts, but does the speed limit still apply inside of a wormhole? Thank you. Yes, it does apply. The speed of light limit does apply inside of wormhole. You can't break the speed limit of the speed of light inside a wormhole. A wormhole is like a bridge, actually, more than a shortcut. They're called Einstein-Rosen bridges. And if matter is traveling inside a wormhole, it can't break the speed limit, the speed of light. It can't. Okay, but that's all hypothetical. Nobody has actually seen a wormhole. We don't even know if they like, the equations tell you that the wormholes want to snap shut immediately and turn into two black holes. But how do you keep them open is the question. So you will need exotic matter for that. Maybe a negative mass matter, which nobody has ever seen. But according to the equations of physics, you can have negative mass matter, right? You can also use topological defects like cosmic strings to keep a wormhole potentially open. But these are all exotic matter that nobody has seen. But anyhow, to answer your question, the speed limit does apply. You can't break the speed limit inside a wormhole. Vihang Khorane says, watched the movie Arrival, which introduced me to Sapir-Whorf hypothesis on how languages change perceptions. Could Sanskrit and meditation and our learning methods be the reason why our ancestors were so brilliant? Okay, I am not very familiar with this Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Okay, let's see. Whorf, what am I doing? Whorf hypothesis. Okay, let's see what it says. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, or linguistic relativity, proposes that the language a person speaks influences or determines how they perceive and think about the world. Oh, I completely agree with that. And people who think primarily in English are dumber, stupider than people who think primarily in Sanskrit. No question about that. So the language a person speaks suggests that this hypothesis suggests that grammatical and lexical structures shape cognitive patterns and worldviews, making it easier or harder to conceptualize certain ideas, and so on. I completely agree with this. I mean, I've not heard of this hypothesis, like I said, but it makes sense. I've thought about it along those lines, but not calling it the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Of course, the language you speak influences the way you think. It influences how intelligent or stupid you are. It does. If you speak a crude language like English, if that is your primary language, you're gonna be a little lower in intelligence and cognition and whatnot than somebody who speaks a high language like Sanskrit. But today nobody speaks Sanskrit, fortunately for the English speakers. We have killed Sanskrit in India. It survives as the vocabulary of the existing languages, but nobody actually speaks Sanskrit anymore. But maybe a handful of people who speak it as the primary language, I suppose. So I completely agree that Sanskrit and meditation and our learning methods were the reasons why our ancestors were so brilliant. And because we no longer speak Sanskrit, most people no longer meditate, and we have abandoned our indigenous learning methods. That's why Indians are so much lower in intelligence today compared to our ancestors. No question about that. I completely agree with you. Totally. The movie Arrival, well, yeah, I saw that. It's more of an art film masquerading as a science fiction film, and that's my opinion. And it's an opinion that is not very popular, but anyway, yeah, so I agree. Vineet says, they preach atheism and liberalism while worshipping pagan things of Mesopotamia and Canaanite. That's too wrongly interpretation, horrific things in email. Yeah, the Epstein files, these people are monsters. They are pedophiles, they're cannibals, they're murderers, they're torturers, they are the most despicable human beings you can imagine, and they are ruling the most powerful country in the world. And even though this has been all released to the public, I doubt if anyone's going to be punished. I don't think Trump is going to be punished. I don't think Lutnick is going to be punished. I don't think the Clintons will be punished. I don't think Nikki Haley is going to face any real issues. Right? They're flaunting their invincibility to the world. So the nation that lectures the rest of the world about human rights and freedom and democracy and adopts this morally superior stance, this is the most depraved nation in the world. This nation was created out of genocide and slavery, and now their rulers are pedophiles and murderers and cannibals and whatnot. I mean, that's the truth. Amisha says, it's my birthday tomorrow. Well, happy birthday to you in advance, madam. Happy birthday. What's your best advice for me to excel as a student and grow as an individual? My best advice to excel as a student and grow as an individual. How to grow as an individual? You have to understand who you are. See, most of us, we don't even know who we are. Most people, the things they say, they are not the product of their own thinking. Most people in the world, they will absorb things from here, there, etc., etc., and then they will regurgitate that as if that is their own thinking, but they have no original thoughts of their own. And they don't even know who they are, who they really are. They're scared to spend three hours in a room alone by themselves. They're scared. So most people are like that. I would say you need to get in touch with who you really are. You have to spend time alone. You have to understand who you are, and that will then inform you as to what decisions to make in life and what directions to go in. So that's one advice. That's how you grow as an individual, by introspecting. It's not like you should spend 5 days out of 7 introspecting. No, once in a while do that. Try and think about who you really are and what what you're really about and all that. How to excel as a student? How to excel as a student? First advice: don't spend your entire day studying. You'll go crazy. Okay, your parents, many parents will tell students at least 8 hours a day you have to study. Ideally, 12 hours a day. You wake up, study until you sleep, then go to sleep. Then next day, repeat, rinse and repeat. That is terrible advice. You should force yourself to study only within a certain time frame, even if the exam is coming in 2 weeks' time. Last 5 days, maybe you can study 8-12 hours a day. Only the last few days. That will ensure you don't get burnt out mentally. Otherwise, you should ideally not study more than 4 to 6, maybe 4 hours a day. If you are reasonably intelligent, 4 hours a day is enough. And by forcing yourself to do all your study in a certain amount of time, you'll actually maximize the outcomes of your study, and that way you'll also be able to balance your life and do interesting things beyond studying. So I'm not saying it should be 4 hours. You can decide whether it's 4 hours or 6 hours or 3 hours or whatever. But that's how you excel as a student. You don't excel as a student by spending your entire time studying, right? Yeah. All right. Happy birthday. Do well. As always, best wishes. Achintya Anand says, Harshdeep Ji wrote article for Make in India. Now we know why our lobbying failed. Epstein was also targeting Indian women, and after the USSR fall, targeted Slavic women. Reason for children removal by Russians. Mother of New York City mayor is also in the files. Okay, you mentioned a lot of things here. Hardeep Singh Puri. So when everyone's writing about all kinds of nasty, disgusting things to Epstein, Hardeep Singh Puri ji is writing about Make in India. Man, he was dedicated. So Hardeep Singh Puri, the minister, right? He does figure in the Epstein files. How does he figure? He's lobbying for India. He's lobbying for Make in India. The one clean guy in the Epstein file, I suppose. Hardeep Singh Puri. I don't know if that's why our lobbying failed or whatever. Did our lobbying fail? Okay, the Americans obviously see our lobbying in the US will not work well because the Americans are pro-Pakistan and they don't want India to do well. That's why lobbying fails. If you have a smarter minister, your lobbying will not work. No matter who you have, the Americans don't want India to succeed. This is something you need to all understand. Okay. Now, Epstein was targeting Indian women. Okay, I have not seen that part of the Epstein files, but I'm sure he must have targeted all kinds of women. And they would have targeted Slavic women. Of course, where there's misfortune, the vultures will circle, right? The vultures, the Western vultures will circle wherever there is misfortune. After there was an earthquake in Nepal, the Christian missionaries started circling like vultures. And they have successfully converted God knows how many Nepalis after that. So these vultures, they feed on misfortune. So yeah, I suppose lots of Slavic women were targeted and brought to the US, and God knows what happened to them. Yeah. Reason for children removal by Russians. I don't know about that. Okay. So the New York City mayor is this Zohran Mamdani character. His mother is Mira Nair, the filmmaker. And she was once married to a guy named Epstein, but a different Epstein. And then she married the guy who allegedly is Zohran Mamdani's father. And she is in the Epstein files. That's what I know. I don't know in what capacity or to what activities she's in the files, but she's in the files. Nasty stuff. Okay, Vivek Singh says, how can the untapped potential of states like UP, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, etc., be used? They're key for 10% of GDP growth, as they are a massive workforce. See, the states, first of all, they need top quality leadership. That's one thing you need. So at least Uttar Pradesh, I know that the leadership is great. It's Yogi Adityanath Ji, who's the leader. I think he's a great leader. I mean, a gigantic state like Uttar Pradesh with the population higher than the US, he's managing that. And so there is that. Okay, so first of all, you need high quality leadership. I'm not sure who's the chief minister of Madhya Pradesh and Bihar. Let's find out. Okay, see, as you know, I'm not keeping track of internal issues in India. MPCM. Who's this MPCM? Mohan Yadav. Okay, I'm not aware of his work, so I would not comment about that. Bihar. Who's the Bihar CM? Oh, okay, Mr. Nitish Kumar, a pretty well-known gentleman. So first thing you need is high quality leadership. Second, you need to end the alleged corruption that may exist. What else can you do? You have all states compete with each other for per capita GDP or the highest GDP growth in the country. Compete in a healthy manner, right? You have all the states compete with each other for the most amount of investment they can garner, for the highest GDP growth, for the maximum amount of manufacturing they are doing, and so on. So there are all kinds of creative ways to do it. Each state can have multiple special economic zones, SEZs. That's how the Chinese, jump started their economy. You can do all kinds of creative things in India if you really want the nation to grow. This massive untapped potential, especially in places like Bihar, Magad. Come on, that is the historic heartland of India. That's where all the great empires came from, right? The Maurya Empire, the Gupta Empire. That's Magad. And today, look at the state of the situation in Bihar. I mean, there's so much potential there. So, Ashutosh Divekar says, government budget rare earths corridor. How important is securing MET-REF cap? Securing MET-REF cap. How much time do we have before China weaponizes it? Government budget rare earth corridor. Okay, so there is. I haven't seen the budget. Okay, by the way, I haven't seen the budget. I am not. If you ask me about the budget, I will not know what to say because I haven't studied it. It's come out today, right? The new budget. So I'm not aware of this rare earth corridors thing, so I can't say about that. How important is securing MET-REF cap? What's a MET-REF cap, sir? What's a MET-REF cap? How important is securing a MET-REF cap? What's a MET-REF cap? I'm not sure. So I'm so sorry. I probably am dumb. I'm not able to understand what a MET-REF cap is. Metal ref cap. I'm so sorry. I'm not able to get it. Sorry. Sergeant Skyland says, hi. Well, hello. Does India really benefit from having defense platforms from multiple countries instead of a single country? Does it cause communication issues? It doesn't cause communication issues. It causes logistical issues. Let's say you're talking about the Air Force. The Air Force, what kind of aircraft does the Air Force have? The MiG-21 is now phased out. We have the Jaguars. We have the Mirage 2000s. We have MiG-29s. We have Sukhoi 30 MKIs. We have the Tejas aircraft. So that's at least 5 different kinds of fighter planes. Then we have various kinds of. So if you have 5 different kinds of fighter planes, they all have different characteristics. They're used for different purposes. But if you have lots of different kinds of fighter planes, you need different, you need to supply them with spare parts. Of course, after some time, you need to change spare parts for a fighter plane or any aircraft. So you will need so many different supply lines. But if all your manufacturing is done or the equipment is manufactured, let's say in one country, India itself, then it's so much easier to get all the spare parts, right? If you're buying some defense equipment, let's say the Chinook helicopters from the Americans, then there's going to be additional layers of bureaucracy to get the stuff that you want. Maybe the Americans aren't pleased with you, then they will delay the supply of the spares and so on. Right? So it's a problem. So ideally, you want everything to be manufactured in your own country. That's the ideal situation, right? In that case, there's not going to be any issue. So it's not about communication issues, it's about logistical issues, it's about spare parts, and it's also about politics and geopolitics, diplomacy as well. Prasardana says Indians were making fun of Pakistan a few years ago for JF-17's inferior Russian engine, but they are able to export it and fly it. But our thing is kind of dead. Which thing is kind of dead? You're talking about the Indian engine, the Kaveri engine. I'm not sure what the deal is with the Kaveri engine, but apparently we are going ahead with Safran, the French company, to manufacture a completely new engine, which will serve, um, which will be the right one for our requirements. That will take a few years. The JF-17 uses a Russian engine. Now, I am not aware of Indians making fun of the Pakistanis and the JF-17. The JF-17 is a decent aircraft, I suppose. It's a derivative of the MiG-21. So the Chinese took the MiG-21 and improved upon it and created this JF-17, and that's what the Pakistanis fly. And the Chinese, obviously, for the longest time, they did not have their own jet engines. That's why it uses Russian engines. Have the Pakistanis exported the JF-17 somewhere? I'm not sure. Maybe a couple of nations may have taken it. So okay, good for the Pakistanis. Our engine, the Kaveri engine, it has never got sufficient funding, and I don't know what the story is with Kaveri. But yeah, we are going with new French deal. So we'll see about that. Simply a Weeb says, what exactly led to ultimate break-in? What exactly led to ultimate break-in in India? Was it cause we were too kind that we forgave multiple times, or we became arrogant? Also, Indian history book recommendations. If you want Indian history book recommendations, well, I'm gonna have to point you towards my older videos for history book recommendations. First of all, let's do that. Okay. You go to my channel. Here's my channel on the screen. You go to the videos tab that we are on. You go to the oldest, and you see these cringe thumbnails, which are the best books for learning Indian history. It's a 13-minute video. I've got some recommendations there. So that is the deal. Now, what led to the ultimate break-in in India? Are you talking about invasions of India? Was it because we were too kind that we forgave multiple times? No, it is none of these things. It is because we were not politically unified under a single empire. It's because we were politically fragmented. At the time when the Turks started attempting to invade India, you did not have a single empire in India like during the Mauryan period or the Gupta period and so on, or the Kushan period. That's when the whole of the subcontinent was unified under a single empire. When you had that situation in India, nobody could invade you. But when the Turks started invading 1000 AD approximately, before that, at that time, India was divided into small kingdoms. And that's why, because we were not politically unified, that's why the Turks eventually started gradually succeeding. Okay? That's what happened. Slow Cheetah, that's a great name, like Fast Snail. Thank you so much. Thank you. Ansh Divu says, why didn't the US ensure its European and East Asian vassals maintained enough relative power to offset the rise of China? Seems like a geopolitical blunder. The Americans had grown very complacent. So the Americans started aiding and abetting and midwifing the rise of China after somewhere around the early 1970s. Okay, in 1969, the Chinese and the Russians, the Soviets almost went to war, and the Americans saved the Chinese from being nuked by the Soviets. And that's when the process of the détente begins, the thaw between the two countries. Eventually, China starts very cautiously, very gradually opening up its economy and they start manufacturing stuff for the Americans in China, in Chinese factories, starting with screwdriver stuff, very basic assembly and all. But eventually they become slowly bigger. In 1990s onwards, they start shooting up their economy. So the Americans were under the delusion that if the Chinese economy is allowed to grow and China becomes gradually more prosperous, the Americans were under the illusion that China will then become democratic. I mean, they actually believed that nonsense. And that's why they did not make their other vassals in the region, Japan, South Korea, etc., stronger. They actually weakened Japan 1990s onwards, 1980s onwards, right? They weakened Japan. They did the Plaza Accords that slowly, gradually deflated and shrank and sank the Japanese economy. Japan is now a middle income nation. It's no longer a high income nation. The Americans did that to Japan. So the Americans were deluded, I suppose. They thought that the Chinese will become democratic. Well, the exact opposite happened. China has become an empire. Okay. R. Rajar says, by the way, no Epstein files leak from September 1, only October and November. September 01. Only October and November. Okay, I'm not aware of that. Maybe that's an interesting point. Yeah. Okay. R. Rajar says, last time you were proven wrong besides the Aryan invasion. Last time I was proven wrong. Last time I was proven wrong was, one of the times recently I was proven wrong was when I said that that Operation Sindoor will cause a change of territory. I have this tweet. Okay, you want to see me proven wrong? You enjoy that? Does it make you happy? Yeah. Let me make you happy then. Give me a second. Let me pull up Twitter. And let's go to my profile. Okay, let me please you to show you how I was proven wrong. So I have this Twitter account. And we go to May. Let's say, one second. Let me just search for it. We are at war. We are at war. Let's see. Do we find that? No, the Twitter search isn't great, actually. Let's see. War. War. Okay, this one. So here is me being proven wrong. We are at war, friends. Within the next 2 to 14 days, India will inflict a comprehensive military defeat on Pakistan. The borders will change permanently. Clearly, I was wrong. Clearly, I was too optimistic. Does that please you? Are you pleased now? All right. V. Hung Korane says, hello, Abhijit sir, how are you doing? I'm doing great. How are you doing? I hope you're doing good. I had a question. What exactly lies in the region between the two entrances of a wormhole? Also, can a collapsing and unstable wormhole turn into a black hole? Let me answer the second one first. A collapsing and unstable wormhole. All wormholes, by definition, are actually unstable. They will not turn into a black hole. They will turn into two black holes. So you have wormhole like this. Let's see an illustration of a wormhole on Google. Yeah, wormhole. Okay, so these are your artistic representations of wormholes. But see over here, you have, okay, this is science fiction. Sorry, other universe. Where can I find a simple diagram of a wormhole? Okay, here we have a wormhole. There's a left entrance and a right entrance, right? And in between there's this bridge, the neck of the wormhole. Wormholes want to the neck of the wormhole wants to snap shut as soon as possible. Okay, so what happens is that wormholes are unstable, and the neck snaps shut, and that gives rise to two black holes. That's what happens. So those two entrances become two black holes. And that's what happens. I mean, as per the equations. Okay. So what exactly lies in the region between the two entrances of the wormhole? The neck, the throat of the wormhole, which is the region that connects these two disparate regions of space-time. It's like a shortcut, you can say, right? It's like a tunnel that you can go through. Well, that's what science fiction movies tell you, but actually it's unstable and it snaps shut. And that gives you two black holes. So as long as the tunnel, the throat exists, you have a tunnel essentially, or a shortcut between two very vastly disparate regions of space-time. That's what you have. Praneeth Kumar says, should India lead a group like the OIC to protect Hindu, Buddhist, and Dharmic cultures, safeguard communities, and strengthen ties among Dharmic nations? I would love if that happens, but the government of India is a secular government, and it will never do this. As a secular government, you can only appease the external religions that exist in the country. You can't appease the indigenous religions. Or if you appease indigenous religions, you can't appease what is called Hinduism. You can appease Buddhism, Sikhism, Jainism, whatever else ism, but you can never appease Hinduism. See, India is a Hindu-phobic apartheid state. India is the world's most Hindu-phobic country. This will never happen. Never happen. So, it's just the truth. Yeah. Virtually Present says US pays more interest on debt than their defense budget. Countries aren't buying bonds after the Russia asset freeze. AI says they AI says they can't just print dollars. Thoughts? Big fan. Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you very much. Um, countries, yeah. So now those treasury bonds are not that attractive. Nations aren't buying those treasury bonds, and that's a problem for the US. Now, what? How to run the scam now? That's the question. The US dollar scam. The US dollar is a scam. It's a bubble, right? It's a worthless piece of paper, but it has value because the Americans enforce that the value of the dollar through their military muscle. Um, but you now increasingly see nations move away from the dollar. You have the Saudis selling oil to China and getting yuan in exchange instead of dollars. You have the India EU trade deal, which is obviously not going to be in dollars, right? Obviously, it's the India and the EU. India is purchasing Russian oil in rupees. The BRICS nations also don't want the dollar, US dollar. Nations are selling off their US dollar assets and purchasing gold and so on, right? So eventually, the world will move away from the US dollar, which is a complete scam. That's why so many nations are now going after gold, physical gold. So my thoughts, what are my thoughts? This entire thing, the entire global economic order that is based on the supremacy of the US dollar, it's a scam. And this scam has allowed the US to print worthless paper money and buy real things in exchange from the rest of the world in exchange for pieces of paper. It's a scam, right? And the sooner it ends, the better it is for the rest of the world. And AI says they can't just print dollars. They can print dollars. I mean, they can create virtual imaginary dollars in computers and turn them into real currency. They can. I'm not sure what AI actually means by that, but the Americans, they virtually print billions of dollars every day. Okay. Aman Kumar Dhankar says the naval build-up can even look east also. A naval build-up can look 360 degrees. If there's a naval build-up by the Americans in the Sea of Saurashtra, which they call the Arabian Sea, right? Let's say there's a naval build-up by the Americans in the Sea of Saurashtra, right? This place here. Well, it can look west. It can look at Oman and Yemen. It can look at the Gulf of Oman. It can look at the Hormuz Strait. It can look northwest at Iran. It can even look east. It can even look south. So it is what it is. Yes, it is what it is. It can look east. Okay. Pratardana says on Upedia, haplogroup R1B origin is east of Iran. That is so naughty. Very naughty. How can it be east of Iran? That's a very naughty place, isn't it? Haplogroup R1B, the haplogroup of the Yamnaya, the so-called Yamnaya. So what is Upedia? First of all, let's find out. What is Upedia? Upedia, ecology, map, statistics, etc. European prehistory. Okay, let's see what about R1B. R1B, haplogroup R1B, YDNA. So, version française, version italiana. Let us see. Oh, what am I doing? I'm showing you something else. Give me a second. Okay, I wasn't aware the map was still on the screen. Okay, so I've opened Upedia, and I have this thing about haplogroup R1B, YDNA, origins and history, Paleolithic, haplogroup R star in North Asia. Okay, etc. Raghavan, blah blah blah. The oldest forms in R1B are found dispersed at very low frequencies from Western Europe to India, vast region. Haplogroup R1B, Western Europe, South Asians. Three main branches all seem to have stemmed from the Middle East. Okay, so it has got various ways of looking at this. But if it says that the origin was east of Iran, well, that's a very naughty statement to make, because that kind of destroys the Aryan invasion, migration, tourism, picnic theory, right? Naman Parikh says, where did you get your PhD from? I do not have a PhD. I almost got a PhD. Almost. I submitted my PhD thesis, but at the end of the day, I never got the PhD. So I don't have one, even though I did all the work. Aromal Biju says, good deeds done by Gandhi and Nehru for India, no? Good deeds done by Gandhi and Nehru for India, no? You tell me. Aryan Surti says, does India hold air superiority over Pakistan? India does because of its overwhelming missile advantage. Okay. And also, the Indian Air Force is overall superior to the Pakistani Air Force, somewhat, not by a great deal, but the missile advantage we have is overwhelming. And that's why we have air superiority over the Pakistanis, right? I mean, how did we achieve air superiority during Operation Sindoor? Through those missile and drone strikes initially. It's only after softening up the Pakistanis and wiping out their air defense radars and all, that's when the Indian Air Force probably was allowed to go and was able to go and strike at will. That's on day 3 or something. So yeah, we do have air superiority because of our missile advantage. KJ Wonder says, who is a financially independent man? A financially independent man is somebody who doesn't have to take orders from anyone, be here in so and so time and spend these many hours working for me, that sort of thing. If you're financially independent, you can decide what you want to do with your life. If today morning you wake up and say that I'll go and watch 3 movies, you can go and watch 3 movies. If today morning you wake up and say, you know what, I want to travel to so and so place, you can do it. That's a financially independent person. Some are more independent. Somebody could say that tomorrow morning I want to wake up and go to Switzerland. You could do that. For some people, it may be tomorrow morning I'll go and visit the next city. So different levels of financial independence. But financial independence means you are not under any obligation to anybody. You have no debt. And secondly, you can live your life without having to work. That is financial independence. Actually, financially independent also means that, you know what, you are not, for those of you who are starting out in life, financial independence means having a source of income for which you have to work, which means you are no longer financially dependent on your parents or family. That's also a form of financial independence, but for that you have to work. But genuine financial independence means you don't have to work. You do what you enjoy. And even if you don't work, you have sufficient money to take care of your life. So that is the real financial independence. Prasaradana says, it's first Feb and no engine delivered by GE. Yeah. You see, that's how reliable our American friends are. We have a deal. We have paid the money, but they are not delivering engines. They are trying to kill the Tejas program. And shame on India for believing them. Shame on India for actually believing that if you sign a contract with the Americans, they will honor it. Seriously. So incredibly short-sighted of the government of India for actually believing that the Americans won't use these things to arm twist India. Yeah, we are learning the hard way through pain. I am Pratishod says, is quantum technology the future? Quantum computing and quantum machine learning. Where does India stand? Where should I pursue MSc in IT? At TUM, Germany, or in India amid global tensions? First of all, to answer your second question, where should you pursue MSc? Pursue your MSc in the best university you can get into. And I promise you, if you can get into any university outside of India, it's going to be better than Indian universities, especially if it's a Western university. If it is Western, if it is TUM Germany, I don't know what TUM Germany is, but if it's in Germany, it probably is going to be better than any Indian university, including IITs and whatnot. The Indian education system is garbage. It is trash. So I will recommend to all students, try to go abroad for education if you can afford it. Otherwise, please don't do it. If you can't afford it, if your parents, you don't want your parents to take huge loans, right? So if that's the case, then I would say stay in India. But if you can get a scholarship, or if you can, your parents can afford it, or if you can afford it, then go and get an education outside of India, because Western education is always superior to the garbage, trashy Indian education system. That's my deal about where to get your MSc from. Even if you have global tensions and all, you can still get a degree in a foreign country, and if required, come back to India, if you can afford it, as always. Now, is quantum technology the future? Are quantum technologies the future? Even slowly, quantum technologies will become more and more, available, and eventually affordable. So right now, look, you can't have a phone that runs on a quantum computing chip, right? It's your classical standard computing chip that it runs on. But eventually, in maybe 20, 15, 20 years, you may have maybe not phones, but computers that may have quantum computing ability. So eventually, it's going to become more and more widespread, quantum computing, quantum technologies, right? And it's not for everything. I mean, if you want to do your regular work, you don't need quantum computer for that. Quantum computers will have very specific applications. So yeah, eventually it's going to become widely adopted. No question about that. Quantum computing, quantum machine. I'm not sure about quantum machine learning. I've not thought about it, but quantum computing, yes, right. There are some problems that your standard classical computers can't solve or can't solve any in a reasonable amount of time, and quantum computers can do that because of the quantum properties that are used, quantum superposition, entanglement, and all that. So yeah, it is going to be the future. Not everything is going to be quantum computing, but some of the things that you will have quantum computers take care of that, right? Praveen J says there is a tweet dated 17/11/25, still present, of Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav showing Bhutan as a part of India in the map. Has India, Bhutan reached any kind of agreement or understanding? Let's find out. It is a tweet by Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav. Okay. Ashwini Vaishnav. Okay, where is his Twitter? Where's his Twitter? His Twitter is here. So his tweet is from 17/11/25. Let's find out. Let us scroll down. 17/11/25. He tweets a lot, does he? Oh god, that's gonna be a while. January. Oh, okay. It's only showing up to there. Maybe I should see somewhere else. Anyway, so let's not go and look at the tweet. So the question you ask is, have India and Bhutan reached some kind of agreement or understanding? I wouldn't know about it. I wouldn't know. I have no privileged access to confidential information from within the government. I don't have any of that, so I can't say. But clearly, India and Bhutan have a pretty good relationship, and Bhutan. I mean, Bhutan sees India as its protector, right? Bhutan essentially is an Indian protectorate. It's a very small nation, can't defend itself from a nation like China, so it needs Indian protection. So clearly, there is a special relationship. But have the two nations reached an agreement or understanding of merger? I would not know about it. Hyphen says India's GDP is nearing $5 trillion, but with 1.5 billion people. How meaningful is that figure compared with smaller economies that have far fewer people? It's a great question. It's a simple question of GDP per capita. You take your GDP, annual GDP, well, let's say it's 5 trillion. You divide it by the population, 1.5 billion people, right? That gives you a GDP per capita of 2 point something thousand USD, which is paltry, right? So actually, we are a poor nation. We are a low-income nation. And if you compare it with a small economy with far fewer people, you will see those nations have way higher standards of living, because the GDP per capita may be like 10 times that of India. What is Japan's GDP per capita? Let's find out. A much smaller nation. Okay, forget about Japan. Let's say Switzerland. What is Switzerland's population? It's about 9 million, right? It's peanuts compared to India. Switzerland GDP per capita. Nominal GDP per capita is $111,000. So Switzerland's GDP per capita is about 50 times that of India. 50 times, roughly, give or take. That tells you that the quality of life in Switzerland is way higher. Obviously, Switzerland is a very expensive country. Go there and you'll find out everything is super, super expensive, but they can afford it, right? So GDP per capita is the real indicator or measure of what kind of living standards a country will have. Obviously, it's not the only thing that contributes to living standards. If your country has a high GDP per capita, but it's super corrupt, you're going to still have all kinds of problems. But overall, it's a good indicator of your quality of life and living standards. Jatin Kumar says how to keep gut healthy. Eat lots of vegetables, eat lots of fiber, eat probiotic things like yogurt, curd, all of that. Eat fermented stuff like sauerkraut or kimchi, or just eat a good, clean, healthy Indian diet. Your gut will remain healthy. Fast Snail says, why did the EU free trade agreement take decades? Do EU nations get to override the EU trade agreements? Does India need to deal with each country separately or not needed? India doesn't need anymore to deal with each country separately. India is going to deal with the EU as a block of 27 nations. No need for separate dealings with each individual country. Do EU nations get to override the EU trade agreements? I don't think they can override the EU trade agreements. Why did the EU FTA take decades? Because the EU was not that interested in doing this in the beginning. So this deal has been at least 20 years, probably more than that, in the making. And the negotiations were stop-start negotiations, and the EU most likely wasn't that interested in FTA with India. 20 years ago, India's GDP was like way lower than what it is today, right? 10 years ago, India's GDP was half of what it is today. And 10 years before that, it would have been another half of that. So maybe, what was India's GDP in 2006? India GDP in 2006. What was it? In US dollars, man, USD. Okay, it was less than $1 trillion. And what was EU GDP in 2006? EU's GDP in 2006 was 12 trillion. India was not even 1 trillion. So they didn't care at the time, right? It was not that important. But now what's happened is that Trump has come in the way and he's bullying everybody and he's disrespecting the EU and he's making life miserable for them and for India. So now it makes sense for us to have a FTA, beneficial for both sides. India is a much bigger economy now, right? So that's how it goes. If you are less important, people don't care. Vineet says, India was so Chad and based from 70 to 75, punching above its weight, risk-taking, based R&AW Information Bureau in Indira Gandhi, poor but with blade like Iran. After 1990, graph gone so down, appeasement coalition. So after the 90s, you had all these coalition governments that would last 3 months and go, 3 months and go, 3 months and go. I don't know what kind of prime ministers. Let me try and remember the names of the prime ministers. You had a gentleman called Mr. Chandrasekhar. You had a gentleman called Mr. H.D. Devegoda. You had a gentleman called Mr. I.K. Gujral, Indra Kumar Gujral. Then you had coalition governments that came and went. The Vajpayee governments came and went a couple of times. Then you had Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao, whose government lasted 5 years. And in the 90s, India was a very different country, right? Wasn't it? You also had the VP Singh government that brought in reservations and Mandal commission things and all that and made a huge mess and left a mess that we are still dealing with. So the 90s was this very turbulent time. The USSR had collapsed. India's big daddy was gone. India did not have great leadership at the time. I'm sure I've missed some prime ministers, but that's okay, I'm sure. So it was a period of chaos and uncertainty and instability in India. Poor leadership, I would say. No disrespect meant or intended to the gentleman I named. I'm just saying overall, if you have instability, if you don't have political continuity, if you have governments that come in 3 months and go, obviously the leadership is going to be poor because there's no time for a leader to make any kind of contribution. So that's how it was. And then you had appeasement and coalitions and Mandal Commission and the introduction of reservations, the further consolidation of divisions in society, artificial divisions, all of that. Bhaskar Bandit says, one suggestion you can consider using the 60-second intro from geostrategy episodes here in live streams. Those 60 seconds with that specific music is one of the coolest things on YouTube. Okay. How about I consider bringing geostrategy back itself, perhaps? Let me think about that. Then I could use it for that. Maybe I can create a new intro for this one. Have something created. Let's see. Anyway, thank you for the suggestion. Shatabhish says, our R&D to GDP poor for years. Why low contribution from private sector even with naturally guaranteed high ROI when government's actually spending decently in comparison? Uh, yeah, but the private sector obviously, see, there are issues all around. There are issues in the government. There are issues with the bureaucracy. You have the private sector. Okay, I mean, take the example of Bharat Forge by Baba Kalyani. Okay, they manufacture some of the best artillery in the world. Bharat Forge. Okay, they manufacture some of the best artillery pieces in the country and all kinds of other things. But they don't get orders from the government of India. So who's responsible for that? So you have examples like Bharat Forge that do good work, but they don't get orders. And then you have other private sector companies that maybe are not interested in R&D. So yeah, I mean, R&D is something that takes time. You have to invest a lot of money into it. That's what the Americans do. They invest billions of. I mean, American private companies like Google, like Alphabet, Microsoft, etc. They invest billions and billions of dollars. Look at OpenAI; they've invested how much money into R&D. That's why they are able to be world leaders, market leaders, in with the cutting edge technologies. In India, I suppose the older entrepreneurs are simply not interested in that. They just want to have an easy way of making money. One of the easiest ways of making money all the way from the 80s 90s onwards was labor arbitrage. So we have this big pool of software developers in India. America has Fortune 500 companies. In the US, if you're a software developer, you can charge maybe $100 an hour hypothetically. But in India, if I am a company who's employing software engineers, I can pay a software engineer 10,000 rupees a month. That's peanuts. 10,000 rupees a month is what? It's $100. I'm charging 100, and a US software engineer will charge $100 per hour from Fortune 500 companies. So I will bill every hour at $20, okay, to the American company, and pay $100 a month to each individual. I mean, imagine the amount of money I can make through labor arbitrage. So you have these easy ways of making money. Then why invest in it? Why do R&D and all? Who cares? Paisa mil raha hai. That's the kind of mindset the Indian private sector has had for a very long time, right? So there have been these issues in India. That's why we are where we are. Rahul Lack says, "What are the odds of micro black hole in solar system?" Well, depends on the size of the micro black hole, right? Depends on the size, not the size, the mass. There are different. How large, how massive could a micro black hole be? We don't know. I mean, if micro black holes were produced in the very early universe, okay, 13.8 billion years ago, and if they have been, because black holes evaporate, right? They lose mass. So if they have been evaporating, then so if some of them still survive, then they would be like lunar mass sized, the size of the moon, mass of the moon roughly. That's a pretty massive mass. No, their initial mass would have been lunar size, and that's why they would still be evaporating today, but they would be dying out today. So the odds of a micro black hole, maybe planet 9, whatever they call it, maybe it's a micro black hole of some kind. Maybe it's a black hole hanging out in the outer fringes of the solar system, and maybe that's why we are able to we are not able to find it, but we are able to see that the orbits of the outer solar system bodies are all perturbed and out of they are no longer in the plane of the solar system. Maybe there's something out there. Maybe the planet 9, what we think is a planet may actually be a micro black hole, maybe a small black hole, maybe moon mass black hole. What's the Schwarzschild radius of a moon mass black hole? Maybe this much with the mass of the moon. Yeah, that's a possibility. So it's possible, but it's highly unlikely. I mean, and if you talk about real micro black holes, then they would have radiuses smaller than the atomic radius. Like if it's a Planck mass micro black hole, its size would be less than the distance between the nucleus and the electrons of a hydrogen atom. So, okay. Abhishek Singh says, your viewer since 5.3 years. Thank you for everything. Thank you so much for being a viewer for 5.3 years. It really means a lot. It's been a pretty interesting journey, but I'm still doing this because of people like you. So I really, really appreciate it. I'm very thankful to Abhishek Singh, you, and all the other viewers. Thank you so much, everyone. Naveen Chauhan says, administration just did a Pearl Harbor on general caste. No matter which government, it seems general caste is for paying taxes and getting abuses, systematic subversion to erase our identity. People this time are in pain. What can I say? Like I have said many times before, India is the world's most Hindu-phobic country. It's a Hindu-phobic apartheid state. If you're a Hindu, you have more rights outside of India than inside India. In most countries in the West, you have more rights, you have more equality. And one of the things people face in India is this artificial segregation of so-called castes and the permanent categorization of certain castes, so-called castes, as permanent oppressors, and certain castes are then categorized as permanent victims. And everyone's in the race to the bottom. Everyone wants to be a backward caste or backward class or backward this or schedule this or schedule that. A rotten system, and our politicians are making it worse. Horrible. What can I say? They claim, these politicians of yours, who you vote for, that they don't believe in caste. You talk to them, they'll say that one of the biggest problems in India is caste. So if it's a problem, why don't you annihilate caste? Make India a casteless society. Remove every mention of caste from every official document. Make caste irrelevant. If you want to give reservations because otherwise you will not get votes, then give reservations based on each family's economic status, economic condition, financial condition. Those who are below the poverty line or near the poverty line, give them reservations. Maybe for 10 years, for 20 years, but not permanent, right? These are the solutions, simple solutions to the country's problems. These actually can be implemented. But your politicians, they don't want to do this. They want to keep dividing the country. All the politicians. That's the problem. Hani Sharma says, I don't want to jinx it, but yesterday how India flattened New Zealand, I think no way we are not winning the 2020 World Cup in February. That to India, what do I think? I haven't really followed this New Zealand series or whatever came before. So I'm not sure. Yesterday there was a match, right? And Ishan Kishan hit a century in 42 balls, I hear. And he was not in the team for a long time. A guy of his caliber is kept out for non-cricketing reasons. Strange. Even Shami, Mohammad Shami, why is he not in the team? He's one of the best bowlers in the world. He's not in the team for what reason? I don't understand. Anyway, that's a different story. So India flattened New Zealand yesterday. Did India bowl very well? I think Bumrah was taken all over the place. That's what I saw from the figures. So Bumrah doesn't seem to be in good form for whatever reason. But the lefty, what's his name? Arshdeep, he got 5. So yeah, I do look at the scorecards and all. I don't watch this stuff a lot these days. So, and Surya Kumar also is getting runs now, is he? Good for him. Anyway, I hope we win the World Cup. When the World Cup happens, if we are progressing to higher stages, I certainly will watch the matches. Maybe the quarterfinals. Do we have quarterfinals? Maybe the knockout matches and the semifinals and final I'll watch if we are playing. Let's see. I hope we win, of course. Pratham Soni says, how to develop critical thinking in any daily habits. How to develop critical thinking. First, start by asking questions about everything. Let's say so-and-so minister makes a statement. Ask yourself, is this true? Find out how to learn how to fact check that. So I can't give you a long answer here about how to do critical thinking, but I'll tell you this. At the basis of critical thinking is asking questions. Being skeptical. How can somebody be skeptical? By asking questions, by doing fact checking. Somebody says something, don't just believe it. Ask yourself, is this true? In what circumstances could it be false? How can I find out? And that's sort of thing that leads to this habit of the skill of critical thinking. MK says, what's your view on M.M. Keeravani, the music composer of Bahubali and RRR? Is he a musician or a music engineer like A.R. Rahman? I'm not very familiar with his work. I think I watched some of RRR. I don't remember the music from that. Bahubali 1, I haven't seen. Bahubali 2, I did watch. The music was all right, I suppose. But apart from these two movies, I'm not aware of Mr. Keeravani's work. So I could not possibly comment. Yeah, I'm not sure. A.R. Rahman, not a fan of him. Keeravani, I'm not sure. Not sure. Krishant Bordoloi says, in the budget, government of India has said that they will start promoting Tibetan Buddhism in the northeastern states. You think it's to combat conversion and in the long term make the majority again revert to Buddhism? I heard that there's going to be a Buddhist circuit in the northeast of India, including Manipur and Assam and whatnot. There has never been Buddhism in Manipur. Never. There's never been Buddhism in Manipur. The indigenous polytheistic culture of Manipur is called Sanamahism in English. And for the past several centuries, the primary culture has been mixture of Vaishnav Hinduism and what they call Sanamahism, right? That there's never been Buddhism in Manipur. The other northeastern states, I'm not sure. But I kind of get it. If the government promotes Hinduism, it becomes a communal government. But if you promote Buddhism, then you are being secular, right? So I see the issue in what we call the northeast, the far east of India, is this industrial scale conversion of people that's happened there by American missionaries, helped by various Indian governments. So if you want people to come back to indigenous culture, maybe you can do it through Buddhism, perhaps. Tibetan Buddhism, any form of Buddhism, I suppose, is fine. So maybe that is the intention, and if so, I'll say okay. I'm not sure what Buddhism has to do with Manipur. I'm not sure about that, but okay. At least it's not some other foreign religion, I suppose. Okay. Abhishek Singh says, what's the history of Vaishnavism and Abhira Gopa's tribe of India? Are they related to modern Yadavs and Ahir, people of North India? What's the origin of both? I have no idea. The Abhira Gopa's tribe of India, the tribe. See, we don't have tribes in India, first of all. Please use non-incorrect terminology. I'm not scolding you or criticizing you. I'm saying let's understand what a tribe is. Okay, what is a tribe? A tribe is a small group of isolated people who live in some isolated region, maybe on a hill, maybe in a forest. That's a tribe. Typically, maybe 100 people, maybe 500 people, maybe 1,000 people. That's a tribe. It's a small group of people who live in isolation from the rest of humanity and who are pretty primitive. That's a tribe. In India, we don't have tribes. Rigvedic tribes. You idiots, the Rigvedic tribes, the Rigvedic people gave rise to the greatest civilization we know. They were not tribes, they were clans. So these, you could say these are clans possibly. I don't know who the Abhiras and Gopas are. I have not studied their history. So I don't really know whether they are related to the Yadavs, Ahirs. I don't know. Okay. I don't know their origins. I have not studied their history. What's the history of Vaishnavism? It's the worship of Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is one of the three major gods in what we call Hinduism in English. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, right? The Trinity. And the Trinity are essentially the same God, but different facets of the same God. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So Vishnu, the worship of Lord Vishnu is Vaishnavism. And typically you do it in the form of the worship of the avatars of Lord Vishnu. Mainly Sri Ram and Sri Krishna. That's Vaishnavism. It's very ancient. That's what I can say. Bhaskar Bandit says, question from Star Lord 3721. From a geopolitical perspective, how did the 1966 rupee devaluation affect India's monetary influence in the region, in the role of the rupee in neighboring economies like INR in Gulf? See, the Indian rupee was used as the primary currency in the Gulf region. You had the Trucial Gulf states, okay? The Trucial states, Trucial. Okay, the group of 7 sheikdoms in the Persian Gulf that entered into protective treaties with Britain between 1820 and 1892. Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, Ajman, Al-Quwain, Ras Al Khaimah, and Fujairah. They are now the UAE. Okay, they became the UAE in 1971. So the Trucial states Okay, they used the Indian rupee until until around 1960 something. Uh, INR, the Indian rupee. The Indian rupee was the de facto currency of the crucial states until 1959. And India introduced the Gulf rupee in 1959, which circulated until 1966. And the devaluation of the Indian rupee in 1966 led to the introduction of the dirham eventually in the UAE, right? So that obviously was a blow to India's to India's standing and India's influence in the region, economic influence in the region. The 1966 rupee devaluation, it certainly was a blow to India's influence in the region. Imagine if that had not happened, then even today the RBI's Gulf rupee would be the primary currency in the UAE and in the Gulf region. That would give India so much influence over these nations in so many different ways. It's like we have this habit of digging our own, not our own grave as such. We don't dig in India's grave, but shooting ourselves in the foot. Shaswat AIIMS says, I am in first year MBBS. I really want to practice in India, but seeing many people glorifying leaving India due to its toxic work culture puts me in dilemma. You're in the first year of MBBS and you want to practice in India. You want to be a doctor in India. People glorifying leaving India due to toxic work culture. Look, if you're a doctor in an American hospital, you're going to work insane hours. Okay? I suppose doctors, if you're a trauma doctor somewhere, you're going to work insane hours. It depends. If you have your own practice in India, for example, let's say you get your MBBS degree and you start a practice in India. If you have the capital, the cash to acquire your equipment and start your own practice, acquire a clinic and start your own practice, and you're able to get good customers after a while, then you're going to have a very good time. If you're working in a hospital, you may have to work with all kinds of other seniors and all that, the seniority culture. In that case, you may have to face toxic culture. So it depends on what your objectives are. Do you want to be in a hospital? You want to work in a hospital. That's a different environment. You want to have your own practice as a GP or whatever, as a specialist of something perhaps. That's a different thing altogether. How much money do you want to be able to make? Are you okay with the money that a GP makes or a doctor working in a hospital makes? Or do you want to make lots of money? It depends on so many things. So figure out exactly. I'm sure you figured it out, but you've not told me, so I can't answer for you. I would say go wherever you're able to achieve what you want to achieve. Okay, if it's outside of India, go for that. And if you will be able to achieve whatever you want within India, well, stay in India. All right, all the best. Died with Prigozhin says, how good is or was Russia, USSR in STEM, R&D and education? Russia had an excellent education in the scientific fields. Russia did fall behind in certain technological fields such as computing, for example, going from the 60s, 70s, 80s onwards. But the education system in Russia was outstanding. In the USSR, it was outstanding. The USSR produced some of the best physicists in the 20th century. It produced, the USSR was leading the space race until 1969. And even after 1969, they did some things that the Americans have never been able to do, like land on Venus and send back images and audio recordings from Venus. The Americans have never achieved that. So overall, the Soviet education system was outstanding when it comes to science and technology. Outstanding. And I'm sure it's pretty good today also. Nakshatra Agarwal says, what makes the F-22 Raptor the most lethal fighter jet? The F-22 Raptor, the most lethal. Well, I'm not entirely sure about what makes it the most lethal one, but I know that it's the best one. I haven't studied the details of exactly what makes it the best. See, I'll tell you one way of externally validating whether it's the best fighter plane or not. There are two fifth generation fighter planes the Americans have. F-22, F-35. The Americans export the F-35, export versions to various nations. They are even offering it to India. Obviously, we'll not take it, thankfully. The Israelis get the best version. The others get various other export versions. But the full version, it's available only to the US, maybe to Israel, the F-35. So the Americans are willing to export certain versions of F-35s to other countries, allied countries, vassal states. But the F-22, they don't even export it to Israel. They export it to nobody whatsoever, because it is that advanced. It is the crown jewel that they have. That itself tells you that it's the best fighter plane they have. What the details are, you can look it up, but I haven't done that. Meet Butt says, what do you think of the idea that one must achieve power at all cost? Anything that is demanded to achieve it is worth sacrificing power at all cost. Well, if you are someone who seeks power, so this is not for everybody, obviously. It's only for those who are engaged in politics or politics, essentially. Power or in geopolitics. So if you're a nation, you should acquire as much power as possible at all cost. Now, that depends on your value system. There are certain things that some people want to, but other people will do that. So it depends on your value system. If your value system is such that it allows you to do essentially anything at all, like Epstein file stuff, okay, to acquire power, well, then go for it. It's your choice, I suppose. Not for me, but for you, sure. So what do I think of it? I think that power has nothing to do with morality. Power is amoral. Some people want to acquire power because they are ambitious and they are greedy for power. They lust after power. Some people want to acquire power because they want to do something good for the world. It depends. Power, it's like money. It's like a force. It is not intrinsically good or bad. How you use power is what makes you good or bad. So that's about power. Now, whether you want to achieve power at all cost by doing anything, that's entirely up to you. It's a subjective matter. Dive with Precaution says, why you call old thumbnails cringe? Why change old haircut? People change, everything changes. Old thumbnails are very basic. I'd made them myself. I did not even know how to use Photoshop. So that's why they were kind of cringe. Okay. McLevin says, are we a vassal? That's the only explanation for UGC. No, we're not a vassal. We're not a vassal of anybody. The explanation for UGC is that our politicians, they want to keep the nation divided. Our politicians are, for what reason, I don't know. Maybe they are mentally colonized and they actually believe what the British have taught us, which would be so sad, but it is what it is. The explanation for UGC is that politicians believe, whoever the politicians are, I think you can understand, they believe that only by keeping the Indian public divided can they get votes. That's the explanation. It's not vassalage. Minimalist Maverick says, Putin told India Russia indigenous SWIFT will happen back in 2025 for Russia India trade. What's the status of that? Your opinion on bringing raw agents to politics? I'm not sure if Putin said that, but India and the BRICS nations are working on bypassing the SWIFT system right now. That process started in mid 2025. And that's one of the reasons why the Americans have imposed such massive tariffs on India. India is leading the way in this. How far have we gone ahead with this? How operational is that? I'm not really sure. But yes, so India is working with the BRICS nations on creating a complete alternative to the SWIFT system, which will completely bypass the SWIFT system, which will make all these nations essentially immune to the SWIFT related sanctions that sanctions that can be implemented using SWIFT. So yeah, we are working on that. Now, my opinion on bringing raw agents to politics. What's the point of that? Raw agents have a very specific set of skills. Those should be used for spycraft, for tradecraft, not for politics. And of course, former raw agents can become whatever they want. They can become podcasters, YouTubers, politicians, whatever. Okay, Sumit says, why? Few know real Max Uller who made his amnesia. Why? Few know real Max Star Uller who made his amnesia. I have absolutely no idea what you're saying, sir. Sorry. Prigozhin, died with Prigozhin says, allegedly Zohran Mamdani's father, sir, very naughty. Um, I suppose you understood what I was saying there. Allegedly, I suppose. Vaidya Shashank says, is time a physical reality or just a human concept to track our growth and aging? Why do our bodies experience a one-way flow if physics says otherwise? Physics doesn't say otherwise. I mean, if you look at the equations of physics, they are kind of time irreversible, sure, or time reversible. If you look at the Newtonian equations of motion, well, you can put a negative t in there, and you can go backward in time. It has nothing. It doesn't prevent that from happening. And various other equations also, you can have reversible time, I suppose. So the equations, it's not physics that's saying otherwise. It's our equations that we have. The equations of physics that we have, those are our approximations of how the universe works. That is what we have seen of the universe. Maybe our understanding is faulty and incomplete, right? These equations are not the gift of the gods. The equations are what we have deduced from whatever we see. The equations are our creation. Our equations have flaws. We know that Einstein's field equations have flaws. We know that. We know that Newtonian equations also have flaws because they make certain assumptions. So it's not like physics says otherwise. It's actually that our equations seem to say that time is reversible, at least mathematically. But mathematics in the real world, you see, you can't have a one-to-one correspondence in that way. Mathematics, it encodes certain laws, but there are things in the universe that we are not able to encode in the mathematical equations. And so the question is time a physical reality or just a human concept to track growth and aging? Time does clearly pass. We perceive the passage of time. We know that there used to be something called the past. Actually, there's only the present, but we have memories of what happened previously. And the forward arrow of time seems to possibly be a consequence of the of thermodynamics. You know, the fact that entropy of a system either stays the same or increases. That could be the reason possibly for the forward arrow of time. Another reason why time may be an emergent property of the universe may be because of quantum entanglement. We have very vague understanding of all of this stuff. Time is a very poorly understood concept. The two best theories that we have of the universe. One is a theory of the very large scale universe, which is general relativity. In general relativity, time is a fundamental component of the universe. It's one of the four dimensions of the universe. It's one of the elements of the space-time fabric, right? So it's intrinsically part of the universe in general relativity. But it's a dimension. It's not something emergent or something, right? When it comes to the other best theory we have, which is quantum mechanics, which is the theory of the very small, time is not something that emerges from the equations of quantum mechanics or the laws of quantum mechanics. Time is an external parameter. It's a classical parameter. So none of these theories actually gives you an answer as to what time is. But maybe it's quantum entanglement, maybe it's entropy. We're not quite sure yet. Hyphen says, is aging an evolved feature rather than a flaw? Well, there are some creatures, some organisms that don't age, right? There are some organisms that don't age at all. So maybe it's an evolved feature. Maybe it's evolved. Is it a flaw? I don't think it's a flaw. It's a feature. It's not a bug. It's a feature. Aging is a feature because some organisms don't age. They can essentially live forever as long as nothing catastrophic or disastrous happens to them. Which are some aquatic creature, was it? Which organisms don't age? Okay, immortal jellyfish, hydra, which constantly renews its cells. Immortal jellyfish, hydra, planarian flatworms. Lobsters also have telomerase that repairs DNA, allowing them to continually produce new cells and potentially live for an extremely long time. Sponges, corals, sea anemones, tardigrades. So you see all these rather primitive or simple creatures. Some of them have this feature in which they don't age at all. But the more evolved organisms all have the feature of aging. So it's more of a feature and less of a bug. Why is it so? Well, that's uh, that's something that we'll have to think about. But yeah, it's a feature, not a bug. Hit Dedia says India's surveillance uses Chinese HIK vision, etc. In cybersecurity, uses Israeli ex Mossad run cyber arc, checkpoint software, etc. Are we doomed? We are potentially doomed. We use things that others manufacture for our most critical, vital work. It's a yeah, it's a massive security flaw. See, there is one element of sovereignty that is called technological sovereignty, and in that domain, India is not sovereign. India is not a technological sovereign nation. The good news is that there is no technological sovereign nation in the world. All nations depend to some extent or the other on technology produced by other nations. But India is severely compromised when it comes to technological sovereignty, and it's scary actually. Scary. It gives so much leverage to other nations. I mean, imagine surveillance security using Chinese equipment. Imagine that. Arun, Arun, thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Ansh Devu says, follow up, getting government out of the way of education, allowing non-government approved curriculum, religious schooling, homeschooling, etc., not overthrowing the government. Okay. So, okay, let's say you allow religious schooling. Now, how will that help a child's career is the question. Because at the end of the day, the education system should give you the skills that are applicable in the real world and will give you a good career. Let's say you want to be a software engineer. Let's say you want to be an aeronautical engineer. Let's say you want to be a rocket scientist. Let's say you want to be be something else. Will your religious schooling give you the skills you need for that? No, right? Homeschooling can do that if you have a non-government approved curriculum, and if you have, let's say, an institution that has a non-government approved curriculum, it issues a degree, but that degree is not accepted by the companies where you will apply, then you have wasted essentially your childhood, right? So these are the issues. The system is geared in a certain direction, right? So for these things to become viable, the private sector, even the public sector, will have to be in a position where it accepts certificates from non-government approved educational institutions, or don't need certificates at all, only look for skills. So that evolution needs to happen. Then we'll be able to get the government out of the way of education, even if they don't want to. Ritik Pawar says, would we see a major military buildup from all countries in the near future as the US starts flexing its muscle? And are we all heading towards a big war? Well, I hope we are not heading towards a big war. We may be heading for instability. We may be heading for more regime change operations, like potentially America hitting Iran, possibly. Right? That sort of thing may happen. I don't think we are heading for a big war right now. Thankfully. Yeah, we don't see signs of that. We could see a localized war between the US and Iran. Maybe India, Pakistan also could happen. Taiwan seems to be unlikely unless the Chinese go crazy. So that's the situation. Now, will we see a major military buildup from all countries? No. Only some countries have the resources to have a proper military buildup. India is one of those. The Pakistanis will also do that with American help. Russia is already obviously building up. China is also building up. The US will build up. So the major countries, France also, the EU will do that. The NATO nations will do that. So we're going to see more build up militarily, but not all countries. Most countries don't have the resources and they can't afford to do that. No African nation will do that. None of the various nations in Southeast Asia can afford to do that, or need to do that, even if they may so desire, and so on. So only some nations will do it. Abhaya Patil says, is there any role of foreign occupation on Britain in English language monkeyness? English language monkeyness? Okay. Is there any role of foreign occupation on Britain in the way the English language has evolved? Of course, of course. See, the original population of the British Islands was the people who constructed Stonehenge and those monuments, those Neolithic monuments. Those people were wiped out. Some of their DNA survives. Their female DNA survives. Their male DNA was wiped out, which means their males were massacred, but the females were allowed to continue to exist. Who massacred the males? A bunch of invaders from far away east, the Yamnaya. They invaded England, the British Islands, and they killed off the males. That's why the male DNA disappears, but the female lineages continue, which means that they took the women forcibly and procreated with them. And that's how the original, that's how a new population was created in the British Islands. These people became the Celtic peoples eventually. But even the Celtic people, the Celtic peoples, they say that their ancestors came from Far East, right? The children of Danu, the Vedic goddess Danu. So those are the Celtic people. Then you have an invasion by the Romans, Julius Caesar, etc. So they invade the British Islands and subjugate the people there, the Celtic peoples, and rule over them for like 4 centuries roughly. So the Romans leave behind some DNA. Obviously, naturally, that's going to happen in the population. Then the Roman Empire, it slowly collapses. The Romans withdraw from the British Islands, and after that, the Angles and the Saxons and the Jutes invade. These are Germanic invaders who come and subjugate the Celtic people, and they become the dominant elite, the rulers. And they come in large numbers. So now you have a Celtic population and a Germanic population, Anglo-Saxon population. Eventually, they intermingle over time. The north remains more Celtic, the south becomes more Anglo-Saxon, right? North is in Scotland, Ireland, that's more Celtic even today. Then you have the Viking age, a couple of 100 years, where the Vikings took over England from time to time, right? The great heathen army and so on and so forth. So you have Nordic DNA that comes in, which is also kind of related to Germanic DNA, which is why in the north of England, in Durham, in Yorkshire, you have more Nordic DNA. In Scotland, you have Celtic plus Nordic DNA. In Ireland, you have more Celtic and less Nordic DNA, and very little Anglo-Saxon DNA, and so on. So that's how all this happens. Then in the year 1066 AD, you have the Norman invasion. The Normans were half French, half Nordic, but they spoke French, and then you have new DNA that comes in, and with each DNA comes new languages and stuff, and that's how eventually you come up with this thing called the English language, which is an amalgam, which has a basis, a bedrock of German grammar and German structure, with a lot of French vocabulary and vocabulary taken from many other languages. That's how this happened. Karthik Iyer says, YouTube is not allowing me to criticize Donald J. Trump. Well, shall I do that on your behalf? I understand YouTube has all kinds of fantastic censorships and restrictions and all. What's my subscriber count right now? Let me check my subscriber count. Let me see. My subscriber count right now is 951 something. Oh, wow. They allowed me to go above 950. For the longest time, they had stuck me on 949, like for 8-9 months. Now it's gone above. So YouTube has all these issues. My channel has been very badly affected by YouTube. We know that. So YouTube is not allowing you to criticize Donald J. Trump. Well, let me criticize him for you. He clearly has been exposed as a pedophile, as a pervert, as the kind of person you don't want to be in the same room with. Yeah, I totally agree. The details in the Epstein files are disturbing. They're disturbing. They're disgusting. Horrible. Disgusting. And I've not even had the courage to watch any of the videos. I don't think I'll watch any of them. Apparently, some videos are also there in the Epstein files. Yeah. So what it tells you is that these people who rule the US are a bunch of monsters. Monsters. Only monsters will derive pleasure from harming helpless people. And the most helpless members of society are children. And these people eat children, apparently. and kill and torture children and do all kinds of God knows what kind of horrific things. These people rule the US, and they preach human rights and democracy to the world. Absolute hypocrites. Innocent USA. Innocent USA says, Arya, Abhijit Chavda, channel journey, poker face, good quality content to joyful, clearly, even more good quality content. How was journey? Journey has been good. I'm not sure exactly what you're saying, but the journey has been good. It's been good. I've enjoyed it, and it continues. Okay, thank you. Okay. Hyphen says, were colonial empires primarily motivated by economic imperatives or by elite power consolidation through violence? I don't know about elite. I don't know what you mean by elite. Whoever is powerful eventually becomes elite, right? If you're powerful, you can control money, and that's what makes you elite. So initially, you have somebody who comes and grabs power, and then they eventually are called the elite. Colonial empires, were they motivated by colonial empires are empires of occupation and extraction. Okay, the one we are familiar with is the British Empire. They occupied India they ruled India for about 2.5 centuries, right? The presence of the Anglos starts in India around 1600 AD, 1600 or 1610, whenever it was. They set up this factory in Western India, in Surat, right? And then eventually you have the slow gradual expansion of their influence. And eventually in the 19th century, beginning of the 19th century, they defeat the Maratha Empire in the two Anglo-Maratha wars. That's where they start ruling the country properly. They were motivated by plunder. Okay. The reason they set up the Indian administrative system and all the stuff was to plunder India more effectively. It was not to make India a better place and to uplift India and to bring their civilized ways of life into India. They did the exact opposite. They engineered hundreds of artificial famines, starved hundreds of millions of Indians to death, did worse things than the Epstein files will talk about to Indians. Okay, but they did all of this in order to plunder India as effectively as possible. And they took out maybe 70 or something trillion dollars worth of today's money out of India in terms of value. So they were motivated by economic imperatives. They were motivated by plunder, by loot. And they were willing to do whatever it took to plunder the country. Giora TV says, did the Shunga dynasty try to erase traces of the Mauryan Empire on purpose because of hatred? I am not aware of the Shunga dynasty trying to erase traces of the Maurya Empire. I'm not aware of that at all. Did that happen? I am not sure. I have not read about Shunga efforts to erase traces of the Maurya Empire. I mean, look at Pushyamitra, right? Look at his life and his career. Pushyamitra Shunga was the Senapati, the commander-in-chief of the last Maurya Empire. Brihadritha, I think his name was. And the last Mauryan emperor was incompetent. And India was in deep trouble because of him. It was being overrun by Yavanas and whatnot, kind of mlechas, right? The economy was bad and empire was crumbling. So Pushyamitra Shunga did the right thing. During a military parade, he assassinated the Mauryan emperor, the last one, and he installed himself on the throne. Now, after that, what happens? Pushyamitra rules for the rest of his life, and then his son becomes the next emperor. But Pushyamitra Shunga never called himself emperor. He always called himself Senapati. So if you call yourself Senapati, you are acknowledging the fact that you were the Senapati to the previous Mauryan emperor, right? So it doesn't indicate any desire or any attempt to erase the trace of the Mauryan Empire. So at least Pushyamitra Shunga did not do that. I don't know about his descendants. His descendants did not last long, right? They did not continue the empire for too long. Ayush Gupta says, which is the best startup you liked in India? And also Russian girls are mentioned a lot in Epstein file. Can't Russia take any legal action? I'm not sure which startup I have liked in India. I think all startups are good as long as they succeed and make India a better place, more prosperous place. I will refrain from naming any one startup. Russian girls are mentioned a lot in Epstein files. Can't Russia take any legal action? Where does Russia go? Is there a court that rules over Russia and US both? What legal action can Russia take? Which court does they go to? Do they go to the Russian Supreme Court, the American Supreme Court, some other international court of justice which the Americans don't recognize? Where does Russia go? Think about it logically. There's no place for legal action. What, you go to the UN? The UN is anyway useless, right? There's nothing the Russians can do. Brown Leprechaun says, why does Trump 47 look more hurried than Trump 45? Because he has been given a mission by the US establishment to achieve a certain number of things. He also knows that he's got 3 years left in his term, and after that he doesn't get any more time as the president of the US, and he is driven by personal ambition. He wants to be remembered as the greatest president of all time. So that's why he wants to achieve as much as possible in the next 3 years. That's why he looks so much more hurried. Giora TV says, do you see India getting rid of secularism and democracy in the future? Someday it will happen, but it doesn't look like it will happen soon. The current lot of politicians and leaders, they worship democracy and secularism. They worship the constitution, right? So I don't see that happening anytime soon. But yeah, India will only regain its civilizational status once we get rid of at least secularism and this current system, this Westminster parliamentary democratic system that we have. We need to. This is holding India down. It's like 100-kilo weight put around your throat. Terrible. Ritik Pawar says, which is wiser to pursue in life, power or money? It depends on who you are and what your objectives are. If you're a politician, you should pursue power. Money will automatically come to you. If you're an ordinary person, what power will you get? If you're an ordinary person who is not into the pursuit of political, if you're not into politics, then you should try and accumulate money, because money will give you the freedom that you seek in life. Restore Bharat says, torn between multiple citizenship and OCI for global freedom, money and power as an outsider, or Indian citizenship with full rights to improve governance but less freedom. Is this path viable in India? Okay, what are the options you have? Multiple citizenship and OCI for global freedom. So let's say you are a citizen of 2 nations and you also have an OCI card. So that gives you global freedom, money and power as an outsider, or Indian citizenship with full rights to improve governance but less freedom. Is this path viable in India? Which path? Which path? The path of Indian citizenship with full rights to improve governance but less freedom. It's a viable path, but it's for you to decide whether it's for you or not. If you have decided to dedicate your life to improve governance in India and to improve the lot of India, then you can pursue that path only if you are really wealthy and an Indian citizen. You can also do it as an OCI card holder if you are a very wealthy person. By investing in the right sectors in India, maybe setting up businesses in India, setting up local, with local, whatever the method is, you can do that. But so there are multiple options. If you are a wealthy person with a foreign passport, you can stay in an OCI card. You can still do a lot to help things in India. You can set up foundations. You can have people mentored who will provide the right kind of leadership to India. There are people who do that from outside of India. Some of them are actually foreign agents, Trojan horses. Maybe you can be an actual non-Trojan agent. Somebody who does good for India. So it's entirely up to you what you seek to achieve and how wealthy you are. You can only make a big impact, positive impact, if you are wealthy. So if you have wealth and if you have an OCI card, then you don't have to become an Indian citizen. You get almost the same rights apart from voting rights if you have an OCI card. Then you can do a lot to help India with an OCI card and wealth. So that's what I can tell you, sir. All the best. I'm glad that there are people of Indian origin who seek to uh, serve India in some way. So all the best, sir. Do well. I wish you the greatest of success. Praveen says, apologies for the typo in my previous India Bhutan super chat. The tweet of Ashwini Vaishnav is on 18th September 2025. Just my observation. Okay. Should we try and look for that again? Ashwini Vaishnav tweet. Give me a second. Let's go to. All right. Give me a second. Let me search for this. Ashwini Vaishnav. Ashwini Vaishnav. Okay, let's find his Twitter and let's just search for Bhutan. That may be a better way of doing things. Search for Bhutan. September 18, 2025. Okay. I'm not sure about that. Let's go back. Okay, so I think that will take time to search for it, but okay. Anyway, so thanks for letting me know. I will check it out at a later stage. Maybe after this live stream. I'll check it out. Thank you. R. Rarun Rajar says, I mean, no Epstein mail leaks 9/11 month skipped. You mean September 11 to that thing? There's been nothing about that in the Epstein files. That's interesting. Okay. Interesting. Mr. Sid says, how do planes or jets descend? Do they dip the nose or adjust the flaps for descent? I'm curious about the science of descent and landing. You know, aircraft, they have wings, right? The wings, they have flaps and spoilers. There are these things, these surfaces that you can control, which can rise like that in the front of the wing and in the back of the wing. In the back of the wing, it typically, if the wing is like this, the surface at the back, which is called the flap, will go down. This is called the flap or the spoiler. And there's a surface in the front also, which can be raised or whatever. And by doing that, you can slow the speed of the plane, and you can also pitch the nose down. I mean, even in the tail of the plane, you have these two little smaller wings that can pitch the tail up or down, by which you can also make the nose go up or down. And through all these control surfaces, you can actually essentially control every aspect of the plane's movement. You can, if you have two wings, you can put one of the flaps up, one of the flaps down. By that, you can change the angle at which the plane is. So when you're making a turn, you typically want the plane to go at an angle like that, so that inside the plane, people are not thrown around or whatever. So you can do that by pitching one wing down, one wing up, and going in that direction. You can even do interesting things like side slips by using the horizontal stabilizers, control surfaces, and so on. So you've got multiple control surfaces. In fighter planes, you even have canards at the front of near the nose of the plane, and so on. So each aircraft, depending on the design, has a bunch of control surfaces, and by using those, you can control the rate at which you descend and whether you stay at a certain altitude or start descending or even go up. And also, the engine output matters, right? So if you want to descend, you typically bring the output of the engines down so that the plane also slows down and you can descend. If you want to ascend, if you want to take the plane upwards, then you typically throttle up the jets and you go faster. That's what you do. Ritvik Yadwanshi says, with the US squeezing global oil outlets, China may end up relying more on Russia for energy. Correct. Would that shift give Russia more leverage and power over China, which they were losing? Absolutely. So what the US is doing is it's trying to do that. It's trying to squeeze China. There's only a certain number of sources of oil and gas in the world, right? Sources of energy that China so desperately seeks. China doesn't have sufficient oil and gas reserves for its needs. It has to import a lot of oil and gas, mostly oil we're talking about. And there's only a few nations where you have oil. One is Saudi Arabia, one is Kuwait, one is Iran, one is Iraq. You have the UAE, you have Nigeria, you have Indonesia, and so on and so forth, and Russia, and Venezuela. Venezuela gone If Iran is gone, Iraq is controlled by the US, Saudi is controlled by the US to a large extent, um, UAE on the side of the US, and so on. So if the Americans get to control all the sources of oil for China, then they have to completely rely on Russia, which gives Russia tremendous leverage over China. But it also isolates China, which is good for the US. And then if the US can cut a deal with Russia, which will not that be easy at all. But so the objective is to isolate Russia and China and bring them together, and then perhaps deal with them individually or something. Died with Prigozhin says many are labeling Epstein as KGB honey trap. What's my opinion? I don't see Epstein. I don't believe that for 1 second. Yeah, blame everything on Russia. US is clean always, right? Russia did all this bad stuff. Epstein was a KGB agent. What utter nonsense. He was pure American. This is American culture. It's not Russian culture. This is the American culture. This is American values and Western culture. That's what we're seeing. Hani Sharma says, is it important to go to gym if I want to be jacked? As of now, cause of cat, I can't really go to the gym. Continue. You think push-ups and pull-ups will be enough, or what else can I do to achieve a decent aesthetic physique at home? You can acquire a couple of kettlebells and a couple of reasonably strong dumbbells, reasonably heavy dumbbells, what you can handle, and do push-ups and pull-ups and crunches and sprints. And that can give you a decent aesthetic physique if with the right diet, for sure. You can use the kettlebells and dumbbells for other, core workouts and shoulders and traps and arms and back and whatnot. Kettlebell. I mean, in a gym you get all the various weights. A whole range of weights. You can't do that at home, but if you get the right weights, and it's usually good enough. So if you can't go to gym, if you're stuck at home, then I think a couple of kettlebells, a couple of dumbbells is enough, along with push-ups and pull-ups and crunches and sprints or walks or whatever. That is enough to give you a decent aesthetic physique at home, as long as you ensure that you have a good, clean diet. Right? All the best, sir. Do well. Hani Sharma says, good night, sir, and a humbly request to watch Tumbad. I shall watch Tumbad. Thank you so much for the recommendation and the reminder. Thank you. Rohan Bini says, your personal favorite upper and lower body exercises? Well, I like barbells, barbell bench press, and barbell rows. I love rows. I've done so many rows, tens of thousands of rows. That's my favorite upper and lower body exercises. I like the deadlift too. I really enjoy it. And I do this exercise. I don't know what it's called. There's something called the shrug, right? You can do shrugs with barbells or dumbbells. I do this. I do this. I'm not sure what to call them. I do these shrugs, but I do these very rapidly, and that's not quite the right way to do things. If you're supposed to, shrug the weight up, bring your shoulders to your ears, and hold for a couple of seconds, and then bring it down slowly. But I do it very rapidly, not as a shrug, but as an exercise that builds the forearms, the grip strength, even the back. It's even good for the core. So that's one of my favorite exercises. Where did I see it first? I think I saw Bill Goldberg, the WWE wrestler, do that. And I incorporated that. That worked out great for me. So that's one exercise I like. Lower body standard, the deadlift is also a lower body exercise, of course, but also the squat and the lunge. I think squats and lunges are enough for lower body. Okay, so that brings me to the end of today's session. All the super chats are dealt with. So that's about it. Thank you very much, everybody, for all the questions. It was great fun as always. And Manhattan asks me, do I have six-pack abs? I currently do not have six-pack. I do have a six-pack, but it is not visible right now because there is a topping on top of it. I need to bring it out again. Yes, I need to excavate the six-pack. So yes, that is the mission now for me. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. I really enjoyed this. And there's one more super chat. Let's deal with that. This is the last one for today. Please don't take any more super chats, guys and girls. Would you travel in SSJ 100 and IL 11 if they enter service. The Sukhoi Superjet and the Ilyushin 114 if they enter service. Oh, I would love to. Yeah, I'll take the first opportunity to travel in that. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Good night, good day, wherever you are in the world. And do always remember to keep asking questions, keep learning, keep raising your standards. And I will see you very soon in the next live streams. Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.